Bruce, you must have something really good too.
Of course I do. It's Bruce Danielson, and I guess I'm here to entertain you too.
Good evening. Welcome to the Tuesday, January 15, Sioux Falls City Council meeting. We'll go ahead and get the meeting started. Clerk, can you please read the roll?
Council members Brecky.
Here.
Erickson.
Here.
Kylie.
Here.
Neitzert.
Here.
Selberg. Sale. Starr.
Here.
Staley.
Here.
This evening, I'm honored to welcome back Reverend Brent Best from Emmanuel Baptist Church. He's going to be giving our invocation this evening. I would ask that you rise for that. Stay standing for the Pledge of Allegiance to immediately follow. Reverend Best, thanks for being here.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Glad to be here. Would you join me, please, in prayer? Our Creator and Father, it is good when your children cooperate with each other for the betterment of all. With that intent, we pause to take a collective breath and seek heaven's aid in being wise and considerate people. Before we address the challenges of this evening, we pause to count our blessings. Tonight, we are grateful for your gifts of life, of freedom, of a heritage and a future, of material resource. Give us wit and will to employ these gifts for the benefit of all our residents. Here in Sioux Falls, we have a historic opportunity to demonstrate to the nation how to solve problems by building consensus, pooling solutions, and adapting traditions to solve contemporary issues. Bless our mayor and our city council. Protect those who protect us, our first responders, police, firefighters, EMTs, and military. Your abiding presence makes all the difference. I offer this prayer in the name of Jesus Christ. If any agree, let them say amen.
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 I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. We will move on to approval of the consent agenda and look for a motion on the consent agenda.
Move approval.
Second, Erickson.
Okay, move to approve Selberg, seconded by Erickson. Any discussion, council?
I'd like to make a motion to amend the consent agenda. There's a little technical issue that came up that I brought to the attention of our parliamentarian, Tom Greco, and I'd just like to correct it. On item 7 last week, it was listed as being an approval of the change orders, and technically that was a notification, and a little research showed that term had been added at some point and was incorrect, and so it looked odd because we actually never voted on them. And so in finding it, that has now been corrected, so in the future, our minutes or our actual meeting agenda will indicate, that it is a notification. And so a little change, just wanted the record to reflect that. So if people were wondering why we didn't actually approve an item that was on there for approval, they'll understand that change has been made. And then also in the future, when we need to research and see why something was changed, the record will be there to reflect it, and we'll know that. So I would make a motion to amend it to, in the future now, it will be on there listed as the consent agenda item as a communication.
Okay. We technically don't need a motion, just simply it's a correction of the minutes, so I'll just ask if there's any objection by any councilors to that change. Okay, and seeing none, I'm going to ask for a roll call vote on the motion to approve as amended by Councilor Brecky.
Council members Brecky.
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
Kylie.
Yes.
Neitzert.
Yes.
Selberg. Starr.
Yes.
Staley.
Yes.
All right, consent agenda is approved 7-0. We will now move to our regular agenda. Look for any changes or motions on that.
Move to approve, Erickson.
Second.
Okay, motion to approve by Erickson, seconded by Kylie. Any discussion, council? Vote on that, please.
Council members Brecky,
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
Kylie.
Yes.
Nitzert.
Yes.
Selberg.
Yes.
Starr.
Yes.
Staley.
Yes.
All right, that's passed 7-0. We're at the public input portion of tonight's agenda. As a reminder, during this portion, public input will not last more than 3 minutes per person, and in total lasts no more than 30 minutes. During this portion of the meeting, persons may not address items appearing later on in the regular agenda. For those items after general public input, input is limited to 3 minutes unless the time is being presented for final adoption, in which case public input is limited to 5 minutes. At this time, I'd like to invite members of the public forward for public input, and clerk, please note the time is 7:06. Good evening.
My name is Chase Kramer. I'm an architect at TSB. On Christmas Eve, I wrote a post on the South Dakota American Institute of Architects blog that was critical and concerned over the future of the bus system in this town. This post was subsequently picked up by the Sioux Falls Business Journal. I listed 5 ideas that I thought it was important for the city to consider, with impressions from media that perhaps those considerations weren't being reviewed. Since that post, I have heard plenty of feedback that folks in planning and the city's task force studying transit are generally after what I'm after. I say, great, tell us more about it, because that isn't the public's perception for sure. Tonight, however, I also felt it was important for those of you at a more top or executive level in our city's government to hear these assertions in case you didn't get a chance to read that article. This is not a wish list. This is an attempt to brainstorm, provoke thought, and help lead us to better solutions. Public transportation is a public good, in my opinion, much like providing for better schools. Society benefits, even if it doesn't seem like oneself may directly benefit, and I, as a taxpayer, would be more than ready to pay more taxes for an improved mass transit system, regardless of whether or not I found it convenient for once. Point 1, the main tenet of my article, survey or capture all people. An attempt to eliminate any bias from the survey. 9 a.m. on a Friday, as one editorial caption noted, is probably not a good sample. And don't survey just current users. Identify neighborhoods that could potentially benefit from usage, and identify what schedules, routes might work best for them. Maybe not every lower income neighborhood is trying to utilize services located downtown. Maybe they just want to get to their job. 2, identify possible express zones or lanes. Zigzagging routes take more time. A straight shot running continuous down a street like 41st, passing high schools like Roosevelt and O'Gorman and Lincoln, and connecting to neighborhoods beyond east and west, could be more efficient than a loop that needs to start and end downtown, especially if the hope is to engage choice ridership that subsidizes the costs of others. 3, identify more transfer stations or hubs than just downtown and a single Southwest transfer stop for one route. This could help with item 2. Item 4, use technology to be adaptable. Identify peak times and run on the weekends. Many routes have the same intervals between each cycle, regardless of the time of day. This seems entirely inefficient, though it makes a scheduler's job easy. Maybe utilize GPS and make an app that tracks the system so riders know exactly when the next bus is due to arrive, especially effective if the schedule is adaptable. And finally, 5, investigate whether other forms of transit are more cost-effective long-term. Is Sioux Falls ready for light rail or a tram system in key areas? Wouldn't it be great if there was an express form of transit connecting the event center campus and downtown? The answer is yes. It would be fantastic. Thank you.
Thanks, Chase. Good evening.
Scott Harrisman, Sioux Falls. Jim's going to put something up here for you. I know that the 5G thing passed last week, but there's still time to get this stopped. Over the weekend, I spent almost the entire weekend researching this because there's a lot of things out there that don't seem believable. So this is what I came up with, and these are the facts. No testimony from the FCC or telecom industry on the health effects of 5G. Currently, the FCC is shut down. The contract should have been deferred until the government was reopened. Interesting also that they took out health effects, and the FCC had health effects taken out. So you can't stop 5G because of that. There was no public hearings. It is illegal for a private corporation to use public utility poles without a period of public comment. While the FCC rules were changed so health effects couldn't be used as a reason to deny a permit, there are many other arguments, property values, visual effects, etc. Other communities have 200-foot setbacks, no residential areas, and yearly application and inspection fees. Extreme intimidation was used on city councilors about potential lawsuits if they didn't vote for the contract, intimidation used by the mayor, city attorneys, and deputy chief of staff on citizens claiming it was a done deal. It is not a done deal. The contract has not been ratified. There's a waiting period. Houston, Texas rollout happened identical to how it happened here. What are citizens' rights when it comes to how user data will be used in telecoms? The ACLU in California is currently looking into it. Senator John Thune, who chairs the Committee on Telecoms, received almost $1 million in donations from the telecom industry. Follow the money. Thune's personal net worth is $5 million. How do you become that rich working in public service? What are the health effects of radiation from 5G? Countries like Israel and China have strict regulations on cell phone regulation. The World Health Organization has issued extreme warnings about cell phone radiation. World-famous oncologist Deborah Davis has a grassroots effort to tell the public about 5G. She is best known for getting smoking banned on airplanes. She is not some kooky conspiracy theorist. In the UK, a guy, they tried to put a gag order, the telecom tried to put a gag order on a guy because he called them baby killers. The judge threw it out and said that it was the telecom industry that had to prove he was wrong. They have yet to do that, and they're trying to stifle free speech. This must be stopped. The contract must be voided. This is a bad example of how to run government in a transparent manner. We have home rule rights. We can fight it. We need to stop this.
Thank you. Anyone else tonight? Good evening.
My name is Brian Connett. I live at 1502 South Sherman. I was issued a citation for my sidewalk, and it says 24 hours. It was placed at my back door, which I do not use. And it wasn't delivered, and then the next day, I happened to see it when I came in the door. We were working on the problem, and we called, and I got hold of somebody just nothing but belligerent. He says, I don't care what your excuses are and whatever, but I said, we are working on it. He gave us 24 hours. I didn't see the citation till approximately 8 o'clock that night because they put it on a door that we don't use. Just happened to go out to my driveway and saw it. But as you can notice in the pictures, the street and stuff right there is clear full of ice. My water from my sidewalk has no place to go, especially this picture right here. That is the end of my sidewalk, and that is going out into the street. The water has no place to go. I mean, it wasn't snow. We've been cleaning on it. We're trying to get it. When I asked them about getting the ice off the street, they said that's not their problem. That's the street department. I can't keep the ice off my sidewalk if they don't keep the ice out of the street. But they're fining me because I have ice on my sidewalk, but the water has no place to go. We scoop it. I even go around. I have a snow blower on a tractor. I even do my street. I even go around the whole block at times. I keep my street clean. It's just, since that rain and snow event, which I told him about, he says, well, yeah, probably the rain didn't help you any, but I don't know what to tell you. I mean, we've called him. He said, just go with the citation. You can appeal it, but I don't think there's anything you can do about it. And I asked Teresa Staley here, she lives on the same block, brought it to her attention, and she told me to take some pictures and bring things here. But like I said, she can attest that I do go around the block at times. I clean other people's sidewalks because there's a lot of elderly people and stuff around the block. And if they're doing this to me, they're doing it to others. But I mean, we were in the process of cleaning it. They even said that when they were there. We see that you're working on it, but that was a contractor. But we are told from the city, my boss says we have to clean it anyways. Even though you're working on it, we see you're working on it, we still got to clean it because we're here. Mm-hmm. So I don't know what else to do.
Brian, I'm going to ask you to share your contact information with my chief of staff there, Erica, and we'll follow up with you on this, okay? Thanks for being here.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening. Dwayne Skipper. Water and electricity are necessary for a basic standard of living. These monopoly public utilities in South Dakota are 100% controlled by state and city governments. With caps on tax rates and competing ways to spend existing tax dollars, water and power monopoly control make it an easy, albeit unethical way to get more money from the people. It's all in the pursuit of economic development, which benefits select groups at everyone's expense. Your standard of living goes down for every unnecessary dollar paid for these public utilities. In Sioux Falls, if I asked 1,000 random residents, would any of them know that electricity prices have increased 60 to 70% and water and sewer rates have tripled? It's a stealth way to pick your pocket and you never realize it is happening. I have calculated water and electric rates using my own paper utility bills going back to 1995. City water treatment rates are determined at the discretion of the mayor and his administration. Water rates were increased dramatically in 2006. In fact, by 2010, 4 years later, water rates had increased 83% and sewer rates 89%. Now in 2019, the combined water rates are 200% higher, or 3 times more than 2006. So what happened to water rates prior to 2006? Rates were basically unchanged for 11 years going back to 1995. City population grew about 45,000 from 1985 to 2005. How did the city pay for that growth without raising rates? Since the city runs water treatment as a business enterprise, charging users for all expenses, apparently there was enough revenue cushion to pay for the new pipes for 45,000 new arrivals, even at those much lower rates. City residents must ask the question, where did the tripled revenue over the past 12 years go? Who did it benefit? It is tens of millions of dollars. Did long-term existing residents get something that is worth 3 times more than it cost in 2006? Start watching your water bills and electric bills. There are tariffs on your electric bills, and we are in for possibly 20 more years of increasing water rates.
Thank you. Anyone else tonight for public input? Good evening.
Good evening, Bruce Danielson. I have prepared something here that after the presentation last week about the chiller system for the change order for the Romantics Annex office building, I wrote down a bunch of questions and I started back calculating the problems that are going on in that building. To give a little background on my experience, in 1965, as a child, got involved in dealing with water and high pressure and low pressure water systems. I've been working with wells, and there's a whole series of questions that I would like to have answered about why we have to replace this chiller system. But first off, my first question is, did anyone test the water hardness? High mineral content is well known in using quartzite water. Water mineral levels will determine filter screen design and use. There's a filter screen that's built into that well, and they said that it's calcifying, and that's a breakdown of water. You're trying to force water through a screen, and there's issues here. Who designed this system? Who engineered it? How many wells are being used? What size are the wells? There are suction and pressure demands based on pipe size. Long-established engineering formulas show the size of a well should have been used based on available water and how deep the well is drilled. So how deep are the wells? What were the anticipated well pressures? Where is and are the wells? Location of the well points is and are very important to the funneling effect of water flow. As you start pulling water down out of this pipe,
there's this funnel effect that pulls all the groundwater and all the water to it. If you have the well head and the return too close together, you end up having a vortex. You end up having a lot of issues that happen in here. So the other questions we have is, are the wells under the building or next to it? Who installed the system? What is the well intake and output head pressures? High system water pressures will likely cause the water breakdown and cause it to calcify, block the screens. Forcing water at high pressure will cause mineral deposits to form on the screens. Where is the return well located to force the water back down into the court site? Why was an open system designed and used? Local water hardness should have been known before the construction. Known water hardness would have been shown the need for methods to soften the water to remove the minerals. Was the water treatment process considered? Why was a closed loop system not used? A closed loop system would have reused the water with minimal loss.
Thanks, Bruce.
I'll finish it later. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sioux Falls. So I was talked to Council Kurt Soul's not here, but I talked to him on Tuesday and said, when are you going to put crime on your top priority? Because he's out of touch with his district there with crime. And he said, I called the chief of police up 5 months, and I have not gotten no statistics on the crime. I've called, the police hasn't given it to me. So I called, so I said, I'm going to come to the mayor because the citizens, he don't have to answer to us because we don't elect the chief of police. City Hall does. So City Hall's chief of police. This year, I'm going to do a petition drive. If I get enough signatures, I want the chief out, and I want the citizens to elect their chief. I want y'all to understand, in the Southeast District, the rich subdivision of Tut Hill has said that they will sign the petition. Also, I want the police department accredited, which the Chief Burns is against. That police department needs to be accredited. We need to spend the money for that police department to be accredited. Also, when someone runs for chief of police here, they need to do outside source coming in and let those applicants come in from the outside source to get the chief of police's position. Should not always be internal. Do I believe the signatures will be getting there? Yes. But I don't know if it's going to pass the vote or not. But I'm going to tell you something. It's not only the lower class, poor people, but the rich people are pushing this issue as well if I do this petition drive. You know how I feel about the police department? I think it should have been, all of them should have went down, and then you start back up from scratch again because that police department is broken up and divided between the sergeants and the officers versus upper management in there. I see it all the time on the streets. Now, Mayor, I'm going to ask you, can you have the chief of police give Kurt Soul that report that he's been asking for 5 months that he's never received? It is not right. Council members have power. If they ask for information, the police chief should give it to him, Mayor. I shouldn't have to come public with this, but I tried to call Julie from City Hall, and I was not getting any answers either from the police department, even the assistant chief of police here. Thank you so much, Mayor.
Thank you. Anyone else this evening? Clerk, next item, please.
Item 18, new 2018-19 retail malt beverage and SD farm wine license for Golden Coin Casino, 4701 West 12th Street, Suite 101, pending final inspections per Fire, Health, and Building Services. 19, request to include video lottery terminals with the new 2018-19 retail malt beverage and South Dakota farm wine license for Golden Coin Casino, 4701 West 12th Street, Suite 101, pending final inspections per Fire, Health, and Building Services. 20, new 2018-19 retail malt beverage and South Dakota farm wine license for Golden Coin Casino, 4701 West 12th Street, Suite 102, pending final inspections per Fire, Health, and Building Services. Item 21, request to include video lottery terminals with the new 2018-19 retail malt beverage and South Dakota farm wine license for Golden Coin Casino, 4701 West 12th Street, Suite 102, pending final inspections per Fire, Health, and Building Services. Item 22, transfer of 2019 retail liquor license from Callaway's 500 East 69th Street to Look's 69th Street Market LLC, 500 East 69th Street, pending final inspection per health. Item 23, transfer of 2019 retail wine and cider license from Libation Station, 2904 West Russell Street, to Catering by Cleavers, 2904 West Russell Street, pending plan review and permit issuance per building services. Item 24, new 2019-20 retail malt beverage and South Dakota Farm wine license for Catering by Cleavers, 2904 West Russell Street, pending plan review and permit issuance per building services. Item 25, special one-day malt beverage and special one-day wine licenses for All Day Cafe to be operated at 2512 South Lorraine Place for a special event on January 31st, 2019. Item 26, special one-day malt beverage and special one-day wine licenses for Avera McKinnon Foundation to be operated at 4400 West 69th Street for a special event on February 2nd, 2019. Item 27, special one-day malt beverage and special one-day wine license for Avera McKinnon Foundation to be operated at 1000 East 23rd Street for a special event on April 5th, 2019.
Good evening, Jamie.
Jamie Palmer with licensing. I'm here to answer any questions you may have on items 18 through 27. And I also need to request an amendment to item 22. The name was submitted incorrectly. If we could change that to read 69th Street Looks Market.
LLC, got it. All right. Before we do that, anyone from the public here to speak on any of these items tonight? Councilors, any questions or motions on this?
Move to approve.
Mayor,
Go ahead.
hold it.
Councilor Starr.
Thank you. I want to talk a little bit more about 18 to 21. So if we're going to, can we approve 22 through 27 and then come back around?
Sure.
That way we can take care of the amendments first. And
So if you want to make a motion to approve those items.
I would move to approve items 22 through 27.
Second Erickson.
Okay, motion by Councilor Starr to approve items 22 through 27, seconded by Councilor Erickson.
Mr. Mayor, if I can make a motion to amend item 22 by changing Look 69th Street Market LLC to 69th Street Looks Market LLC.
Second, Starr.
Okay, seconded by Starr on that. Councilors, can I get a vote on that amendment, please?
On the amendment, council members Brecky,
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
Kylie.
Yes.
Nitzert.
Yes.
Selberg.
Yes.
Sale, or Starr.
Yes.
Staley.
Yes.
Okay, that passes 7-0. So we're on the amended motion of approving items 22 to 27. Any further discussion on those?
Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Starr.
If I could, I'd like to ask Jamie a question and then maybe an applicant question too.
Sure,
By the
you bet.
time we'll see how far we get with Jamie and maybe the answers. So I'm trying to understand what they're trying to accomplish in 18 through 21.
Point of order. Do we need to vote first?
Let's vote on 22 to 27 first, which is the motion. So if there's any other discussion on those items, if not, let's vote on that.
Council members Brecky.
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
Kylie.
Yes.
Nitzert.
Yes.
Selberg. Yes. Starr.
Yes.
Staley.
Yes.
All right, that has passed 7-0. Now we are on to discussion on items 18 to 21. Councilor Starr.
Great, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Jamie, help me a little bit about what they're trying to accomplish. It looks like they're taking an existing building and splitting it into two and adding 2 licenses to that.
That is correct. That business was formerly a gas station, and now they plan to renovate that building and make it into 2 separate casinos.
Okay, I guess if I could, I'd like to ask the applicant a question.
That would be Vic.
My name is Vic Patel. I reside at 9108 West Lakeside Drive.
Welcome, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm just interested in what the plan is to separate the 2 businesses. Because you're using the same name in the same in Suite 101 and the application asks the Golden Coin Casino,
Okay.
and how you plan to separate the 2 businesses, and is there access between the 2, between the suites and?
There will be 2 separate accesses.
Okay, so give me an idea of how you want this to work, or how you see the business working with 2 separate licenses being that close in the same building.
Would you like to see the floor plan?
Yeah, absolutely, if you've got it. Jim can help probably a little bit to throw it up for all of us.
You have specific questions on that layout, Counselor Starr?
I do. I was just taking, it's just taking me just a second to look. So there's a vestibule between the two suites? Is that what I'm seeing? I'm trying to, sorry.
That
I'm
is
trying to
correct.
do
There
this
is
on the fly. I
no
didn't-
airspace between the two entities.
Would you envision one employee running both sides?
No, as you can see in the picture, there's two counters for, two different bars for each side of the.
Gotcha. Which doesn't stop people from having one employee running both sides, which just, I don't get the mentality, but it's possible. If we chose to only approve one Suite 101 or 102 tonight, would there be one would be a preference for you?
No, I want to put two casinos there.
Right, but if we decided that we would only give you a license for one side or the other, is there a preference? Would you have a preference for Suite 101 or 102?
No, I'll just defer to the votes of the council.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you, Vic. Any other questions?
I have a question for
Counselor
Jamie.
Staley?
So Jamie, I know we dealt with this in the past, that, I mean, where we had that issue of one employee and passing between a building. Is what has been the rule of thumb as far as two casinos within one rooftop?
There honestly, there really isn't anything that states that they can't. I know there's some specifications as far as in video lottery that says the employee has to be able to see the business, and that can be done by cameras, I believe, and I'm strictly going off the top of my head. I don't have that law in front of me or anything, so, but there is, as far as video lottery is concerned, they can control another business by cameras. One employee can.
And we voted that down when that was before us before.
That's in state law.
Counselor Erickson?
What we, if I may, we as a council voted to keep that firewall, the parting wall between the two and not have shared space based on two premises for that. The reason why casinos do this is so they can have a liquor license on one, sometimes a wine and beer on the other, and then essentially they get double the machines. And so it's really a workaround from state law that's completely legal and allowed. The way that state law states it, when we met with Department of Revenue 3 years ago, it's been a while since we went and met with them on smoking, video lottery, liquor licenses, things of that nature. And the state law does indicate that they have to have a visual of the other. I don't have it exactly in front of me. I can refer to our city attorney, but they have to have a visual. And so there are other establishments that do that based on technology, and they'll have locking systems for the doors.
Right, I understand. But I believe we, at that, Jamie, do you remember what that one was, where we did vote it down?
What we voted down was not having the common space. So if you put that map back up there, you will see the parting wall in between it. What another establishment in town wanted to do was you would go in one door, go to the right or left, and the whole room was open with a circle bar in the center. So where you see those bars there, remove essentially the walkways between the two on the right and left sides. And instead of having two bars, you would have one. What that also does, they can share cooler space. They can only put in one set of bathrooms.
What we were saying, my concern was that we were, to me, my vote on that instance was that we had two separate employees that were going to be in that facility. So, and I'm hearing him say that that's how this is, it's going to be like two separate businesses.
Yeah, but it is their right to not have two separate employees in there. If he chooses to put in the electronic surveillance cameras, they can do that, and it's completely legal by state law that preempts the city council.
Whatever that, I can't quite, but I know that we voted as a council against whatever that other action was. You want?
The open shared space.
Yes, so.
If I may, ordinance section 111.021 talks about the restrictions for this discussion exactly. And some of the things that have to be met are occupancy separation, which that's what that wall does down the center here. And then access, that each occupancy shall be entered and exited directly from the exterior of the building, except that a building containing a multi-tenant occupancies may have entrances and exits into a principal mall corridor having a minimum width of 20 feet consistent with covered mall provisions of the building code. And the third thing they must have is visual separation. There shall be no visual connection between the separate occupancies.
Thanks, Jamie.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilor Starr.
I have probably a question for the city attorney, because I know that in a similar case that we have two ways that we can deny this application, whether it's acceptable person or acceptable location. Would it be in order for the council to say that one side of the business would be an acceptable location and say the other part of the same building wouldn't be an acceptable location?
My sense is that you're presented with a vote on each of the licenses, and so you consider each independently, and you consider whatever basis you would have for voting for or against that particular application.
Thank you.
Then I would move to approve items 18 and 19.
Is there a second on that? Okay, that fails for lack of a second.
We'll make a motion to approve items 18 through 21.
Second.
Okay, motion by Councilor Erickson to approve 18 to 21, seconded by Kylie. Discussion, council? Okay, a vote on this, please.
Council members Brecky,
No.
Erickson,
Yes.
Kylie,
Yes.
Nitzert,
Yes.
Selberg,
Yes.
Starr,
No.
Staley.
Yes.
All right, that passes 5-2. Next item, please.
Item 28, second reading. An ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the Code of Ordinances of the city by revising Chapter 95, Parks and Recreation, Section 95.012, firearms, guns, fireworks, and certain remote control aircraft prohibited by removing the prohibitions on remote control aircraft.
Councilor Erickson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I gave a more lengthy presentation last week. I know that there are several constituents here that would like to address the council, so I'll be a little more brief today. I just want to reference the press release done by the FAA that was sent out on July 20th. We really got here today based on constituent services, where I had a person reach out and want to talk about this regulation we had on the books. As we sat down with several across departments in the administration, along with our city attorney, we quickly found out, based on this press release and diving into our ordinances, that our ordinance is out of compliance, and we do not have the authority to regulate aviation through the FAA does preempt cities and states. Now, I know there's been a lot of miscommunication and a lot of misinformation out there in regards to this ordinance, and so I want to make it very clear that everyone understands that this only impacts, if you read the ordinance, this only impacts the parks. That is it. A very small portion of our city, a beautiful part of our city, but a very small portion that we just simply do not have the ability to regulate it. This does not have anything to do with flying over private property, personal property. All of that already currently exists today and is currently regulated with the authority of the FAA. I will, again, stand down for questions and allow the public to speak, but happy to answer any questions if there are those.
Thank you, Councilor. Anyone here from the public to speak on this item tonight? Okay. You guys here? Come on, come forward if you're ready to speak on it.
Hello, I'm Mr. Hofflander, computer science teacher at Roosevelt, business owner and advisor to RHS Flight Club. So I hear that we want to move towards a smart city. And I'm here on behalf of the drone community and future pilots of Sioux Falls. To have a smart city, there are a lot of things that need to happen, but drones will play a big role in this. And with that, we need areas of our city to be accessible. Most of them are, of course, through the proper channels. You can fly within the radius of the airport as long as you get approval, and things have passed through regulation and everything that have been through the FAA and all that. the only stopping point that we have is this accessibility in parks. I think it's important, this repeal, that it happens in that it might benefit our public through qualified pilots, businesses, and organizations that utilize drones. The question might come up, why does anyone need to fly in parks? Well, I kind of put it in two categories, non-essentials and essentials. Non-essentials in that, I mean, it's fun to fly in parks and capture great memories, whatever that might be. We've had a couple of events in RHS Flight Club that we've been invited to come and try and capture some things, and we've been kind of limited to our school grounds. Can't fly in parks, can't go to Keene Park to get a tennis match, can't go to Yankton Trails to capture cross country, although I guess, okay, I'm going to keep going. Stanford Research, also in a park. There were some other things that happened, recreational things, but essentials. Really what we're after is public safety, and sharing a lot with students in our club and in a lot of the classes that I have at Roosevelt. We share with how drones are more than toys, they're tools. And they're tools that help us expand and do with more efficiency and at lower cost the things that we already do. So it's giving us a little further reach with what we can offer. Land surveys, geo-referencing. I often go by 26th Street and Southeastern, where they have the bridge project over there in that area of the park. Park planning and layout, asset management, and I think I had mentioned last week as well a little bit about drainage. Public safety, there could be something happening in a park right now. Even though it's winter, fires still happen. There could be a fire in a park right now, and we could be covering a lot of that using drone technology. One of the organizations that's a big part of the drone community says that there's thousands of examples, and I haven't read through all of them, but I know that all of them are important if they're saving lives. Ideas from another organization, gathering intelligence for public safety. Again, fires, we could even save lives by dropping defibrillators. We don't have AED packs out in the parks that I know of, but this could be our way to do it. Aerial AEDs, I don't know. Lots of ideas. All right, now this next slide is, I don't want to tiptoe around the idea that drones don't exist all across the nation, because they do, and 1 in 10 Americans would be angry or scared if they saw a drone near their home. I know that homes are near parks. I think really what this boils down to is education. More than half have seen a drone in operation. They're in the news, they're on YouTube, and in fact, there are, according to different age ranges, there are a certain level of acceptance. Notice that if we take all 4 of these locations, near people's homes, beaches, parks, at events, parks are the lowest ones. Another survey by CAPE, 94% of Americans, and this information is a little over a year old, but the majority of us as Americans believe that we can improve public safety using drone technology. Overwhelmingly to me, many people don't have knowledge about drones. They know very little about them. In fact, they think they're just toys. And that's all they really will be to them unless they're not educated. 84%, another staggering number for me if you think about all the Americans we have, they would feel more comfortable if they knew more about them.
Nathan, thanks for your comments tonight.
Thank you.
You bet.
Education, peace of mind.
Appreciate it. Anyone else here to speak on this item tonight? Come on up, sir. Good evening.
My name is Cooper Hendricks. I'm a student at Roosevelt High School, and I'm here to say that, like, for future pilots, that they are a thing. We have an established flight club at Roosevelt, and others are being formed in other schools, and there is an interest from students to actively participate in operating drones in Sioux Falls and for commercial use, and that the repeal should go through.
Thanks, Cooper. Appreciate you being here. Anyone else here to speak on this item tonight? All right. Come on up, sir.
I'm Frank Regas with Ascending Innovations here in Sioux Falls, also a longtime resident. I was going to share this, but I'll start with this little blip that I pulled off the internet today, talking about how Congress wants to help local cities and municipalities streamline drone regulation by giving them some local authority in the future. That's from 2017, so as you can see, it's not moving very quickly. And I don't foresee it moving to the point where we're going to have that regulation passed anytime soon, but it's being looked at. And that goes with another story, actually, that was kind of leading off, and it kind of hits home for me. When a Minnesota brewing company wanted to use drones to deliver beer to remote ice houses, I love to ice fish, so the Federal Aviation Administration shot it down, which for good reason, because there's just not enough regulation right now to approve it. But Minnesota cities that tried to also regulate drone traffic on their own also learned most of their authority stops at the sky. Now Congress is considering new rules that would give cities and counties more control over drone traffic while aiming to preserve potential drone-based commerce. Now that's why I'm really here tonight, and that's why I reached out to Christine initially to challenge this local ordinance and try to get a repeal going, because I'm in the drone business to make money. And there's opportunities for me to cover events in city parks. I do have a blanket permit for all the city parks in Sioux Falls, which requires me to also maintain liability insurance, which I do. But during events and public gatherings, I am prohibited from flying my drone in the park to provide coverage for the event sponsor, the media, or any other entity that would like to pay me for my services. So that's really why I'm here. And by allowing me to go in there and do this, it also benefits the city, because we get an opportunity to showcase the great things we're doing here. And we do a lot of cool stuff in the summer, and we'd be able to show that. As well as my services, I pay taxes on every dollar that I make. Local city tax, municipal tax, state tax, and federal tax. So there's benefits for everybody in this deal. And I'd also like to just one last time refer to the memo that Christine spoke about, that the FAA is the ultimate airspace authority. Anything off the ground, they are the authority in the airspace until further regulations come down. And it's coming, but it's not quite here. I'd also like to just kind of remind everybody, there's been a lot of discussion out there, and maybe some non-fact-based comments that are thrown out, and I just would encourage everyone to stay focused on what we're talking about here. We're talking about a repeal on the ordinance 95.012 in relation to drone activities in parks. That's it, that's all, folks. Because right now, currently, drones are allowed in Sioux Falls. You don't have an ordinance that stops people from flying hobbyist or commercial. The FAA does have the regulations like I talked about last week, surrounding the airport for 2 miles. That's a no-fly zone, 0 altitude. Any park within that zone would be prohibited from drone activity. So we're not really changing anything great here. It's just an opportunity for myself, for Nathan, for Ryan back here, the news media, to go in and cover these events that we put on every year in Sioux Falls. And that's really all we're trying to do here. So if we'd stay focused on that, I think we'd all be a little better off. From a privacy illegal activity concern that I know some folks have, Teresa, you brought that up, and it's legitimate, without a doubt. But the reality of that is we can't control everybody, unfortunately. I wish I could say we could. I can't control somebody walking up to your home with a camera and taking a picture. It's just the way some people are. But that authority does fall within the local laws of the city and the Sioux Falls Police. They are ultimately responsible for that. And if there is an incident, any illegal activity with a drone, somebody should call the police, inform them, and law enforcement would, come out and take care of that. And then they would alert the FAA, and there would be an investigation and potential outcome for that. So I just kind of want to bring that up. I already mentioned the Congress. I had a job a couple days ago. Oh, my time's running out. I had a job a couple days ago in Del Rapids, but in my due diligence, I contacted local law enforcement, I contacted the city hall, I contacted the hospitals. Those are the things we do to alert the public that we are coming in to do a mission. So, we do our due diligence. I'm going to close you with one last quote. With camera-equipped UAVs, the dream shot that everyone wants but was never possible is now reality. Steven Spielberg. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. Anyone else here to speak on this item tonight? All right, councilors, do we have any motions on the floor before we enter into discussion?
Move to approve Erickson.
Second.
Mr. Mayor?
By Erickson, seconded by Councilor Kiley. Councilor Steele.
I have a substitute motion. Motion to defer this issue until Tuesday, February 19th.
Okay, second on that. Motion by Councilor Steele to defer this item, seconded by Councilor Starr. You want to?
I have the floor.
speak to that?
Jim, can we just put this up on the overhead for a minute? I recall last summer when this little child was hit by a drone in a park in Iowa. I called the newspaper that reported on this and the TV station this morning. I know that these occurrences are rare, but I have stated that I have concern about safety when it comes to drone usage in our community. I'm wanting to defer this because the FAA is not working at this point. I called, when I first put this issue on Facebook a week and a half ago, I got a phone call from someone who works at the tower, and they said, because I would like to have someone from the FAA here as we're talking about these, since they're going to be the overseer of this. And they said, call back and talk to a supervisor. That was last Monday, a week ago. I called back, left a message. I have yet to hear back from these people. Now, I don't know if it's because the government shut down or if that's just the slow response time. But I think it would be so beneficial for us to have them here as we're talking about this, because they are the regulators. They're going to be overseeing the safety of our community when it comes to drone usage. We've been criticized for passing the 5G thing a week ago without having a little more discussion from the people involved with providing it. So I'd like to do that. Also, I think we need to have a little more clarification about the enforcement aspect, because I was always thinking that the police department was enforcing this. If you see drones flying in your neighborhood, they have to stay under 300 feet. So I have speculated, let's say that 10 people in my neighborhood want to get a drone, and they're all flying the drones around. Who's going to be the overseer and the enforcer of saying you can't do that, or maybe they can, until we have one of them falls out of the sky and hits people having a barbecue in their backyard. I have the greatest respect for what you're doing. I know you're professionals. I understand you know what you're doing. But I think there's a lot of people in our community that don't. So the issue comes down to me is about safety. It's about the enforcement issue. FAA, are they going to be, do we call 911 and they're going to get the FAA to come in if we see a violation? Will they come and take care of it? Education, helping people understand what the rules are for drone operation. I know that one of the stipulations is you cannot fly over crowds of people. You're not supposed to fly over, but one of you in your presentation said that you wanted to use it for crowd control, tennis players, flying over commercial events, and I'm like, well, gee, if you're going over crowds like that, it is flying over crowds. I guess you can get a permit to do that. But some people may not know that, so who will be flying over them? Let's say we have people without a permit flying over a group of people. Who's going to enforce that? Can we call 911? Those are the things I'd like to hear from the FAA themselves, that they will assure us this is going to be the chain of command if you see a problem. But just to shove it off and say, well, it's not our problem and we're just not going to worry about it, to me isn't doing our due diligence. So it doesn't hurt anything. I certainly understand what Councilor Erickson's saying about federally we're not following the law. However, when I called this reporter in Iowa, he said most of the cities over there they don't have a problem with limiting them in parks. So I think there's just a variety of things being implemented at this time. So waiting until the government shutdown is over and seeing if we can get an FAA spokesman here, I think would be really a wonderful thing for our community.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other discussion on this amendment? Councilor Brecky?
Question for the city attorney. Do you feel comfortable at this point answering, what I'm trying to wrap my arms around is it a complete preemption? You know, generally in federal law, when there's these acts, they usually don't take everything away. Usually there's something that the cities can do. And I don't know that we really studied that when we looked at this. Well, I asked you last week, but I'm hearing that Iowa has some ordinances. Well, maybe they're illegal too, but I'd like to look at them. So can you just give me, as best you can, what your understanding is of exactly how restricted we are?
As best I can, what I would tell you is that the exemption is the land, okay? I mean, if you read the text of this ordinance, it references flying, and flying 100 feet, and the FAA, you know, the air is the exclusive domain of the FAA. And I'll give you an example. If you look at South Dakota state law, right? Chapter 50-15 has 3 statutes on drones. The first of which is compliance with federal requirements. So the entirety of South Dakota civil law is that drone usage within the state will be subject to the FAA. And they have 2 subsequent statutes that are criminal in nature, that criminalize basically flight around a penitentiary and dropping of contraband within there. But at the state level, they're deferring to the air. Federal preemption would apply to the air, in my opinion. And so where the city's ability to adopt, for example, as the gentleman put up there, the regulatory scheme or ordinances related to drones is related to the area that the city controls, which is the land. And so the issue with this ordinance has been that it's directly related to flight and heights. And that's different than enforcement. You can raise a lot of questions regarding enforcement as to how do you determine 99 feet from 101 feet and that type of thing. But at the end of the day, the issue is who owns the air? And at that point, that's where the FAA comes in and says that. I think that's the concern that's being raised regarding this ordinance. As far as timing goes, of course, that's the council's decision. But from the city attorney's point of view, that's the concern regarding the existing ordinance, is that it's straying into an area that's outside the city's jurisdiction.
And then just one further question. In the area of enforcement, we received some testimony tonight about the police department does enforce law relating to drones. Can you speak to that question a little bit for me? Because I'm confused about where to send people if they've got questions.
Right. Well, you know, law enforcement, of course, is going to enforce the laws that are on the books. Now, when the question is posed, for example, on a peeping Tom, flying a drone outside of someone's window, there are laws that are drafted regarding the enforcement of that, distinct from whether it's a drone or somebody standing outside your window.
So that's city laws or state laws we're talking about?
Well, that would be a criminal state law as far as there are statutes regarding anything from stalking to, you know, trespass to whatever the case may be. So, and there are city ordinances, and so there's not a lack of a criminal regulatory scheme out there as far as the use of these. Now it's a different platform, of course. But there's nothing that invalidates the laws relating to people's privacy and that sort of thing. And so, and I don't want to get too far afield on that. At the end of the day, the issue on the table here is what do we do with this ordinance where there's the concern regarding the FAA and whether or not the city is straying outside of its jurisdiction. And when you get into the air, the FAA does regulate that.
Thank you.
Councilor Neitzer.
And just to add on to that, and the city attorney can chime in, but my understanding is like they have the domain over the skies, but that doesn't restrict us from police powers and for privacy concerns, zoning, things on land.
Right, and I would add to that, in the event that somebody's violating a federal law or a state law or a city ordinance, law enforcement is the mechanism by which that an arrest is conducted. And so, from that point of view, laws that are on the books that are criminalized will be enforced by law enforcement. And of course, we have different layers or echelons of enforcement from city, county, and federal officials.
And you mentioned a couple state laws. I want to mention one other one, 22-21-1, trespassing to eavesdropping, installation or use of unauthorized eavesdropping device, drones. Any person who, accepted as authorized by law, and I'm going to go to sub 3, intentionally uses a drone to photograph, record, or otherwise observe another person in a private place where the person has a reasonable expectation of privacy. So that's already criminalized.
And that's what I would add, is what you see in the state statutory scheme is a criminalization of certain behavior, but they're deferring on the civil side to the FAA. And what we have in front of us on this ordinance is a civil ordinance regarding monitoring of airspace as opposed to criminalizing behavior.
Sure, and that's right. I just wanted to really quick say kind of where I was at as I researched this and thought about it. This is really simple when we break it down. The current ordinance restricts drones in city parks flying over city parks. The rest of the city isn't addressed, so we're talking about lots of other things about barbecues that are not even on the table. The FAA controls airspace for very good reasons, so we don't have patchwork regulations all over the nation. Can you imagine the insanity that would ensue if a plane is flying and, oh, I'm over Sioux Falls, I got to do this, and I'm over Nebraska, and I got to do this. And so obviously that's why they have that. We're preempted. We can't restrict it. We essentially have a law in the books that's null and void. It's unenforceable. And from looking at a federal court case, something very similar to this, it was struck down as null and void. And so it really comes down to this. The law that we have on the books is unenforceable. We need to take it out. Now, if anybody wants to work on another ordinance that deals with the things that we can look at, they're free to do that, and I think that's has a lot of merit, and somebody could take a look at that. It's going to take some work because you're going to have to try to figure out how do you do it in a way that you're not going to run into preemption. But in this particular case, we have a law that is unenforceable. It needs to come off the books, period.
Councilor Stelberg.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I'm probably reiterating a little bit of what he just said too, but to the city attorney. So we're talking, again, getting back to the basics of this. We're repealing an ordinance that's out of compliance and it's out of our jurisdiction. And if we deferred it, would anything about that change in that timeline?
Well, if we're in court, I'd object. It calls for speculation. You never know, right? For good or for bad, I can't say from a timing point of view. The concern from the city attorney's office would be if something arises, but what that would be, one of the things that the city would have to consider on the executive side is enforcement. In the event that you do that, in the law, you take the flip side of that and you go down the hypotheticals or the parade of horribles, which is what if you fail to enforce it? If somebody relies upon an ordinance that's on the books, that's unenforceable, or and again, the world's your oyster as far as what those facts could be. So that's the city attorney's office. If there's an opinion that there's an ordinance on the books that's unenforceable or inconsistent with preempted law, federal law or state law, then it would be our duty to remove that. Now, am I saying there's an emergency and our hair's on fire and this needs to be removed? I'm not, but again, I can't speculate. It's impossible to speculate as to what may occur. So, once I could look at it and say, well, it's been on the books for X amount of time, it hasn't been an issue. What I found in the law is you never know when those things arise. That's where our duty is as the city attorney's office, and mine is to say, well, if I believe that this is preempted by federal law, it's my duty to state such.
Okay. If I could just, my comments on it would be, we're getting a lot of good input on this, and thank you to the citizens that have shown up the last couple of weeks. I've certainly been educated a lot on this issue. Again, I think it's kind of important we reiterate what Councilor Erickson said, that we are just talking about parks. I think sometimes we've gotten a little bit off track here, a little bit on it. I do want to thank Councilor Staley for reaching out. I know she ahead of time reached out and said that she would be talking about a deferment here, and I do appreciate proactiveness on that. Thank you very much, and I appreciate the work you've put into it. What I've been seeing is, and I have been considering that, I think the hard part is you know, it's hard to hear things like this sometimes as a governing body, but when we're looking at this, I mean, there's just not, there's so much we can do, and it doesn't seem like there's very much. And I just don't know that a deferment's going to make that much of a difference. I think a lot of due diligence has been done up to this point. I think we've heard a lot of good arguments and a lot of good talk back and forth. I just don't know that things will change, but I do appreciate your work. I appreciate you bringing it up, and I haven't been giving it some consideration, but that's what I have. Thank you.
Counselor Staley.
So the thing that is at hand here, it's called FAA, government shutdown. They aren't here today, are they? We're talking about them. We're talking about them being the enforcement agent. And to our city attorney, you just said our hair's on fire. Well, I don't think if we wait until February, whatever my date is here, February 19th, our hair isn't going to burn off our head. City attorney, would you agree that this is not like a pending emergency?
Well, I do not believe our hair is going to burn off our head.
Yes, our hair is not. So if we were to say, all I want to do is wait, we're talking about education, we're talking about the FAA coming in and helping us understand with, I'd like to have our police chief here too, so we're all on the same page as to what can the city do to implement this, as far as the whole encompassing drone issue in our community. This is a great opportunity to talk about this. We are not going to have another opportunity at a city council meeting to discuss this, because I can't just bring it out of nowhere. Councilor Neitzer said we could maybe have some kind of an ordinance to address this. Let's have the FAA come in, and in February, they can be there with us, in front of us. We can say, what can we do, what can't we do? And then we have all the information that we need. Because right now, we're just talking for them, but they're not actually here. And I was under the impression that when Councilor Erickson first brought this up, and I was asking questions, that our hands were tied when it comes to enforcement. You know, as far, we can't, the police, our local police department can't go out and address a drone issue of concern, that we have to call the FAA. Even on Facebook, I mean, some of our most professional drone operators are putting out the FAA website. We contact the FAA website if we've got a problem. Well, that just doesn't cut it as far as expediency of addressing a problem. I'd like to know that we can call 911, and we're going to be working with the FAA and with our city police force to keep our citizens safe. So that's why I just think having a discussion in February with some of the experts of enforcement here would make sense to me.
Okay, I'm going to call on a vote on the motion to defer to February 19.
Council members Brecky,
Yes.
Erickson,
No.
Kiley,
No.
Neitzer,
No.
Selberg, no. Starr,
Yes.
Staley.
Yes.
All right, that fails 4-3. And so we're back to the original main motion by Councilor Erickson, seconded by Councilor Kiley, to approve this item. Further discussion on this? Councilor Erickson.
I just want to draw attention to the FAA Contacts for Law Enforcement. There is a LEAP program. I talked about it last week as well. And there's several different areas. This is a partial government shutdown. There are still folks working in FAA, different branches and different capacities. And so the full FAA is not closed. There are some areas that are still operational. Again, I simply want to state this is only about the park system. That is it. We have an unenforceable law on the books. You have had eight weeks since I brought this to everyone's attention to do your homework, do your research, and look at that I don't know what delaying it would have really accomplished for that. I agree that if there's a time down the road that we'd like to look at more ways to do that, I encourage you. I would love to partner with you to doing that, Councilor Staley. If you're willing to dive in with me and look at that, great, let's talk about that. But today, it's my opinion, with the advice of our city attorney, that we have an unenforceable law on our books currently, and this simply needs to be repealed. When federal government does allow us to have more authority to regulate that, that is a time that we can look at that. I am support of public safety, as well as I know each and every one of you as well. I've had the opportunity to talk to a few different departments and a few other agencies that do come in and do educational programs in our city, as well as our drone enthusiasts that are already being proactive in creating a group of drone operators to get out, to teach classes, whether it's in, I believe someone's doing it in Del Rapids. Nathan, I believe you're doing a class in Del Rapids to get people excited about drones, to teach people how to be safe, to teach people when they're not being safe. I know that there's things going on in the school district. I know that there's different workforce opportunities as technology changes. All of these things are good for our community. And I know that there's aspects of this that have a little bit of concern that we can certainly partner together. The FAA does create a public safety and law enforcement toolkit in which we can partner with potentially partner with our Parks Department to making sure that we are posting no-fly zones over those areas that are restricted, to making sure people understand that. A lot of work has gone into this. A lot of research has gone into this to understand this. And so I'm grateful for everyone that's had their eyes on it. It's really been collaborative with the administration, taking a look at this. When it originally was put into place back in 2012, essentially there were not a lot of regulations on the books. Since then, there has been this regulation that preempts us, hence the reason for change. And so in the future, I'm not opposed to having those conversations, but I certainly want it to be uniform throughout even our state, to making sure that when drone usage is done, it's done in a safe manner and everyone's following the exact same rules. You would hate to have different rules from city to city to city. And oftentimes, the drone community has even rallied around supporting that in other states, making sure it's uniform. So I am hopeful that you will support this. I am happy to answer any questions. I have a plethora of more information if you so desire it. Thank you.
Councilor Staley.
I still think FAA presence here is very important in the discussion. So I'm going to make a motion to defer this to February 4th.
All right, that's an amendment. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion to defer to February 4th, seconded by Starr for, I'm assuming, the same reasons?
Well, I'm shortening the time because apparently we're going to be in grave danger of having some catastrophe happen if we don't get this thing done right away. But I want the FAA here to talk to us about the park issue, to talk about enforcement. We talk about a LEAP program. Is that a 911? How easily is a citizen going to be able to call somebody up if they see a drone issue in their neighborhood? And I'm going to herald back to one of our experts back there. He said that people know very little about drones, never mind that you can go to Walmart or Best Buy and pick one up, and they think they're toys. So I think having the FAA, I would be interested, if you guys would mind if we just had the FAA here. You would think that'd be a great idea to have them in on the conversation, so we have the experts. You see, he said he doesn't care. So once again, just deferring this.
Thank you. Thank you. Councilor Brecky.
I'll keep it brief. But yeah, I just want to explain my vote. I voted for the deferment because I would really like to hear what the FAA has to say. I mean, they are the experts in the area. In these situations, we are much in a learning curve, and we won't just be diving back into this issue again and with any, recent, in the near future. And I have every intention of passing the ordinance, but as long as we've taken it this far and we've learned this much, I just can't understand why we can't wait another week, another month, and just learn a little bit more of those areas that we might be able to deal with, or just be more knowledgeable as we move into the future. So I just don't see why we are in such a hurry. There's no exigent circumstances that I can see. So I want to explain that. I have every intention of voting for it. I think everybody here does. So I don't think we're sending I don't want to send a message to the drone community that we're not going to pass this. We're going to pass this because we have to, but we're learning so much. I'd like to learn a little bit more. So I'm going to be voting for it.
Okay, I'm going to call in a vote for the amendment to defer this to February 4th.
Councilmember Starr,
Yes.
Brecky,
Yes.
Erickson,
No.
Kiley,
No.
Nitzert,
No.
Selberg.
Nope.
Star.
I'll go again. Yes.
All right.
Staley.
Yes.
City clerk, he was called first in the roll call.
Okay.
That fails 4-3. So
Same count.
I'd like to now call for a vote on the main motion, please.
Council members Brecky,
Yes.
Erickson,
Yes.
Kylie,
Yes.
Nitzert,
Yes.
Selberg,
Yes.
Star,
Yes.
Staley.
Yes.
All right, that passes 7-0. Next item, please.
First reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property located at the southwest corner of East 14th Street and South 2nd Avenue from the RA2 Apartment Residential Moderate Density District to the RT2 Townhome Residential Traditional District, number 9588-2018, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. Planning Commission recommends approval 5-0. Recommendation, set a date of second reading for Monday, February 4th, 2019.
I know you're so excited, Jason. Here we go.
I am. I'm
Welcome.
excited to be up here. Jason Bieber, representing Planning and Development Services. This is an application by Huseman Properties LLC. It is located at the southwest corner of 14th Street and South 2nd Avenue. It's about 0.4 acres in size. The purpose of this rezoning is the applicant is looking at keeping the two existing houses that are 2 dwelling units each, and then they're looking at constructing one single-family house with the possibility of constructing another future single-family house to the east of this one.
Thanks, Jason. Anyone from the public here to speak on this item? Councilors, you have questions for Jason on this one? Okay, I'd look for a motion to set a date of second reading for Monday, February 4, 2019 for this item.
Move approval, Selberg.
Okay.
Second. Oh.
Okay, motion by Councilor Selberg, seconded by Erickson. Any discussion? If not, a vote, please.
Council members Brecky,
Yes.
Erickson,
Yes.
Kylie,
Yes.
Nitzert,
Yes.
Selberg, Star, Staley.
All right, that passes 7-0. Item 30.
First reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property located at 219 South Prairie Avenue from the RT1 Single Family Residential Traditional District to the RT2 Townhome Residential Traditional District, number 9663-2018, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. Planning Commission recommends approval 5-0. Recommendation, set a date of second reading for Monday, February 4th, 2019.
The applicant and owner here is Stephanie Woolman. It's located at 219 South Prairie Avenue between 11th and 12th Streets. It's about 0.15 acres in size. The purpose of this rezoning is we're looking to match the correct zoning with the current use of the property, which is a 2-unit house.
All right, anyone from the public here to speak on this item? Questions for Jason, council? Motion to set a date of second reading for Monday, February 4, 2019.
Move to approve.
I'm going to give that to Pat Starr.
Go ahead.
If I turn my microphone on, that's why I lost.
Motion
I would move to set a date of hearing and second reading for Monday, February 4th, 2019.
Let's let him second it, too.
I'll second it, too.
All right,
Second, Kylie.
seconded by Councilor Kylie. Vote on that, please.
Council members Brecky,
Yes.
Erickson,
Yes.
Kylie,
Yes.
Nitzert,
Yes.
Selberg,
Yes.
Star,
Yes.
Staley.
Yes.
All right, that passes 7-0. Next item.
First reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property located at 7201 South Cliff Avenue from the C3 Commercial Community District to the C3 Commercial Community District, petition number 9667-2018, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. Planning Commission recommends approval 5-0. Recommendation, set a date of second reading for Monday, February 4, 2019.
This is an applicant and owner here is Eric Ward. It's located north of East 85th Street and west of South Cliff Avenue. It's roughly 3 acres in size. The purpose of this rezoning is they're looking at constructing an indoor gymnastics facility. They were previously approved this summer for a building of 35,000 square feet. However, as they were going along with construction, they wanted to construct a second floor mezzanine within the building, a place for people to watch the gymnastics and have parties. And so that actually made the square footage of the building up to 38,000, so they had to come back to rezone it again with the condition of that we're recommending a condition of limiting it to 45,000 square feet.
Okay, thanks, Jason. Anyone from the public here to speak on this item? Councilors, do you have questions for Jason on this?
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, that's a motion to set a date of second reading for Monday, February 4, 2019 by Councilor Brecky and seconded by Kylie. Any discussion? A vote, please.
Council members Brecky,
Yes.
Erickson. Kylie.
Yes.
Nitzert.
Yes.
Elberg. Starr.
Yes.
Staley.
Yes.
All right, that passes 7-0. Next item.
First reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property located 4401 West 62nd Street from the I-1 Light Industrial District to the I-2 Heavy Industrial District, number 9703-2018, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. Planning Commission recommends approval 5-0. Recommendation, set a date of second reading for Monday, February 4th, 2019.
The owner of this property is Glambia. It's located at 4401 West 62nd Street North, just east of the Walmart. It's roughly 10 acres in size. The purpose of this rezoning is we're looking at matching the correct zoning with the current use. This is a seed processing plant.
Thanks, Jason. Anyone from the public to speak on this item tonight? Councilors, questions for Jason? Look for a motion to set a date of second reading for Monday, February 4, 2018.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, moved by Councilor Brecky, seconded by Selberg. A vote on this item, please.
Council members Brecky,
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
Kylie.
Yes.
Nitzert.
Yes.
Elberg. Yes. Starr.
Yes.
Staley.
Yes.
All right, that passes 7-0. Next item.
First reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property located at 2301 East 60th Street North from the I-1 Light Industrial District to the S2 Institutional Campus Plan Unit Development District, petition number 9710-2018, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. Planning Commission recommends approval 5-0. Recommendation, set a date of second reading for Monday, February 4th, 2019.
The applicant and owner here is Sanford Health. This is located on East 60th Street North and I-229, the Sanford Center. It's roughly 90.5 acres in size. The purpose of this rezoning is they're looking at getting their entire campus under the S2 PUD and also get approval of this initial development plan that shows the existing buildings as well as some future buildings that they're going to be constructing down the line.
Thanks, Jason. Anyone from the public here to speak on this item tonight? Councilors, questions for Jason on this one? Councilor Nitzert?
I just want to say this sort of thing is great because it's going to allow campus parking where we'll be able to pool parking instead of having a bunch of piecemeal parking lots, which I wish we could do more of this in this city. And it'll be, because you can count parking as an entire campus. And so if you have a building over here, you can, if there's an extra 50 spaces over in this other lot, you can use those towards your parking requirement. You don't, every time you build a building, you don't have to build another parking lot. So great to bring it together as a campus.
Great. Could I ask for a motion to set a date of second reading for Monday, February 14, 2019 on this item?
So moved, Nitzert.
Second.
Okay, moved by Councilor Nitzert and seconded by Brecky. Any other discussion on this? A vote, please.
Council members Brecky.
Yes.
Erickson. Kylie.
Yes.
Nitzert.
Yes.
Selberg.
Yes.
Starr.
Yes.
Staley.
Yes.
All right, that passes 7-0. Next item, please.
First reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property located at 5101 West 5th Street from the RS Single Family Residential Suburban District to the CN Conservation District, number 9711-2018, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. Planning Commission recommends approval 5-0. Recommendation, set a date of second reading for Monday, February 4th, 2019.
The applicant owner here is the City of Sioux Falls. It's at 5101 West 5th Street, just south of the new banquet building that will be constructed. It's about 3.5 acres in size. The purpose of this is we're just looking at matching the correct zoning with the current use of a detention pond on the property.
Thanks, Jason. Anyone from the public here to speak on this item tonight? Councilors, questions for Jason on this? Councilor Nitzert?
Will this happen in time so they don't have to do a buffer yard to the south, the banquet?
Yep, great question. That is one of the reasons why we noticed this specific one was with the banquet property. So we wanted to be proactive and rezone it so they wouldn't have to buffer their specific building to a opened detention pond. So.
Wonderful, thanks.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Starr.
Jason, what do we do to make this attractive and fit in with the neighborhood? Do we plant trees? Do we, I mean, what is the, I think I've heard Lance tell this, and now I put that responsibility on you by the time we're done, so.
I don't know a lot of what we do with those. I know we maintain them to make sure that, you know, they're not overgrown, they're still doing the specific job. I would say we do have to plant some trees at some point, but I'm not exactly sure at what we do to beautify them, but.
I'll find out this week. It'll give me some time. I just wanted to put you on your toes.
I may be able to help Councilor Starr a little bit with that. I do know that we're somewhat restricted with trees or anything that would cause an obstruction to be able to get in and dredge these areas. I've been dealing with some in our southeast portion, and that's always been a case or a situation that they need to be careful about, creating any obstructions.
Okay. Can I have a motion to set a second reading for Monday, February 4, 2019 on this item?
So moved, Erickson.
Second, Starr.
All right, moved by Councilor Erickson, seconded by Starr. Any further discussion? Okay, a vote on this, please.
Council members Brecky.
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
Kylie.
Yes.
Neitzert.
Yes.
Selberg. Starr.
Yes.
Staley.
Yes.
All right, that passes 7-0. Next item.
Item 35, first reading. An ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property located at 8109 to 8217 West 41st Street from the RR Single Family Residential Rural District to the CN Conservation District, number 9716-2018, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. Planning Commission recommends approval 5-0. Recommendation: set a date of second reading for Monday, February 4th, 2019.
The applicant here is also City of Sioux Falls. This is a similar request, with the one previous. It's about 2.5 acres in size, and we're also correcting the zoning with the existing use of a detention pond on the property.
Thanks, Jason. Anyone from the public here to speak on this item? Councilors, any questions for Jason on this? Look for a motion to set a date of second reading for Monday, February 4, 2019.
So moved, Erickson.
Second, Selberg.
Okay, moved by Councilor Erickson, seconded by Selberg. A vote on this item, please.
Council members Brecky.
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
Kylie.
Yes.
Neitzert.
Yes.
Selberg.
Yes.
Starr.
Yes.
Staley.
Yes.
All right, that passes 7-0. Next item.
Item 36, first reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the Code of Ordinances of the city by amending Chapter 32, Audit Committee.
Councilor Neitzert.
Thank you. This ordinance is a product of several weeks of work and a review by a group that reviewed the internal audit charter, the ordinances related to audit, and other policies and procedures governing our internal audit division. During this time of transition, it was a perfect and vital time to go through this review and update our ordinances so that when we do bring on new leadership and staff in our internal audit division, we have a system where everyone has clear expectations, responsibilities, and a line of authority. A lot of things have been done by tradition and convention in the past, and many important processes simply did not exist or were not written down. A number of things simply were not defined. We needed to establish the need for internal audit again, what we wanted out of it, and to put in place a structure that would help to ensure accountability and clear parameters and roles. This is an important step to accomplish that goal. Some have asked why this has taken so long. This was a purposely deliberative process, many months in the making. From my standpoint as the audit chair, I felt very strongly that rushing into a new hire was the worst possible choice. We were at a point where we had a number of relatively new counselors, myself included. None of us were here when the internal audit division was created. We weren't entirely confident what the mission of audit was or should be and what we wanted out of it. We weren't sure how to measure performance of our internal audit division. Counselors were asking me, do we even need an audit division? That was not the proper time to go forward with hiring new staff. We needed to establish the need and purpose of audit first. We did that. We reviewed the history of internal audit. We needed to put a structure in place that would maximize the productivity and accountability of our internal audit division. The ordinance is an important and big part in that process. Having established the need and the purpose of our internal audit and putting in place the proper structure, we can go forward to hire a new leader and staff to give them and us the best chance of success. We knew our pay scales were low. In fact, the position of internal auditor on a percentage basis was by far the least competitive position in the HR payroll study we received last year from the consultant. We needed to adjust our pay scales for our internal auditor and our internal audit manager positions to be able to attract the best talent. We've now done that as of the beginning of this year with new pay scales in effect that are competitive against our peers, both private and public. We're now in the final stages of the transition. Rich will be winding down his service to the city, and we thank him for his service and coming back out of retirement to help us. and he's going to transition back into retirement. With what I hope is the approval of this ordinance, we will have the final major piece in place to start the hiring process of the new internal audit manager, and then we will be able to fill the other internal auditor position with the direction, leadership, and input of that new audit manager. With that, I want to review with you a few of the changes to the ordinance since you saw it at the informational meeting a few weeks ago. We have made a few updates based on recommendations from the city attorney. They're what I would call clarifying in nature and don't make any major changes to the substance of the ordinance. So let's go through those. There's 3. First, we made a slight revision to the verbiage in terms of the submittal of the audits to the audit committee and the city council. The word approve was in there, and we have stricken that word. That really kind of implies that we're saying that they're entirely factual and correct, which is really beyond all of our individual knowledge. The audit committee reviews the reports and submits them to the city council, and the city council receives the reports, but we do not approve them. So we just took that word approve out. Number 2, a line was added to say explicitly that the Office of Internal Audit and its personnel are budgeted under the city council. This is how it always has been done. We're just saying it explicitly. The division is budgeted under the city council and can only expend funds to the extent the city council authorizes them pursuant to our budgetary authority. And number 3, the limitations of authority for the internal audit division was added into the proposed ordinance. This verbiage comes essentially word from the internal audit charter. We originally did not include this because we felt it seemed fairly obvious. However, after discussion, we just agreed it made sense to put them back in so that the limitations of their authority is clear to all parties, to city employees, to auditors, both new and existing, and the city council. And those limits include the following. Auditors cannot perform any operational duties of the city of Sioux Falls or its affiliates. They cannot approve or initiate accounting transactions that are external to the internal audit office, and they cannot direct the activities of the city of Sioux Falls employees unless it's in direct relation to an audit they are performing. And so that limits their scope, so you don't have an issue where one of our auditors could just walk into an office and start demanding random files or asking to go through paperwork. And so that gives us the authority as a city council to give them the direction and the blessing of what we want them to look at. I'm proposing a second reading on Monday, February 4th, 2019. The same night, we will have a resolution to repeal the audit charter, which is moved into ordinance. Shortly thereafter, I would propose and I would hope that we can start the hiring process. We can work on the exact details of that process, although we have already created a draft proposal in that regard. And at the same time, we'll work on proposing changes to our council policies and procedures to enshrine a hiring policy going forward. Right now, it's been done by tradition and by previous convention, and I'd appreciate your support, and I'll stand by for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Anyone from the public here to speak on this item tonight? Good evening.
Evening. Bruce Danielson. There's one of the things I would like to see added to the section 32.016 membership and qualifications on the first page. I'd like to have clarity that it's the voter of the city of Sioux Falls, registered voters of the city of Sioux Falls are active, classified active voters of the city of Sioux Falls. I did a study of all the board members, board and commission members, about a year and a half ago in the city of Sioux Falls, and I found that we have quite a few people on city boards and commissions who are either non-voters or they are inactive voters. And I believe we, according to this memorandum from January 8th, we classify what active voters are. And by the way, thank you, City Clerk, for the book, because I needed that number. So I really think that that's very important to this process. And if there could be a change, a motion put in for that, I think it would add a lot of clarity and make sure that we actually have voters involved in this that really do care about what's going on in city government. Another thing that I wanted to do under 32.023 is right after you say in the first sentence it have the title of internal audit manager, but in that section I would really like to see something that says responsible only to the city council, not we had an administration previously that liked to bulldog things through, and I would like to see a clarity that it is this body here, you 8 members that control what goes on in that office, and that nobody can come in and demand things. Because when we asked for audits on things previously, we were told that, well, we can just change the audit. The mayor wanted things changed, or somebody wanted something changed. It was too hard to get information. Well, it's this body that requires this information, and you have to do your policy setting based on this information. And I really believe that it needs to be just point blank spelled out that nobody else in city government, but this body as a group can turn this thing one direction or the other. And those are my suggestions from what I've had experience over the last 6 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. Anyone else here to speak on this item tonight? Councilors, look for a motion. We can move into discussion if there's any. Motion would be to set a date of second reading for Monday, February 4, 2019.
So moved, Nitzert.
Second, Erickson.
Okay, moved by Nitzert and seconded by Erickson. Discussion on this, Council. Councilor Erickson.
I got a question for the city attorney if I can, and if it's not able to be answered tonight, that's totally fine. And Councilor Nitzert, maybe you know, or our city clerk might know. Anyways, the requirement of being an active voter, is that something we can legally require of an employee to say, you have to be a registered voter and an active voter? I mean, I don't know if it is or not. I always encourage people to vote. I hope everybody votes and exercises that right, but it is just that their right. So I didn't know if that is a legal requirement that we could make. I don't know.
I'd like an opportunity to look at that a little closer before I give an actual opinion on that.
Totally fine. Thank you.
Other discussion on this, Councilor Staley?
I think maybe he was referencing the board members themselves. Would you shake your head? Yeah, I don't know that he was telling us that the city employees had to be active vote. I think he was talking about people who are appointed to boards, citizen members. Is that right, Councilor Nitzert?
Yeah, I mean, he was talking about 32016, and that's the audit committee members, which would be
So they're not employees.
My question would be the same.
private board members, I guess.
Okay. Now, okay, so I have something else to say.
You can have the floor.
Thank you. Something that I had suggested when we had information on this was that we have some wording in the ordinance that would state that the audit chair is appointed by the vice chair of the city council or the chair of the operations committee. I think that should be stated in there. I mentioned it to Councilor Brecky, and we didn't know anything about this. I mean, I just think the whole thing, just as far as clarification that this is how we proceed with these things, and because we have who's appointing the members of the audit committee, so that would be something I would suggest.
Okay. Other discussion, Council, on this item? Okay, if not, I'm going to call for a vote.
Actually,
on
Mr. Mayor, if I
you
can. Yeah, it's on the screen right now. If you look at it, it does say the council chair shall appoint the audit committee chair.
Thank you.
And that the committee chair may be, shall be elected from the other city council members. So does that suffice what you'd like?
Well, because I thought it was the operations chair.
It's the council chair
Brought
currently
that up
right now.
before, I thought it was,
No.
so you did, because remember we said Marshall was the one who did it?
No, it was
That
me.
was a discussion.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, respond to her. Sorry, I need to go through you. It's actually, it gives the council chair the authority essentially to do that, but what I will tell you what Councilor Kylie and myself did over the last year, and then myself and Councilor Selberg have done, is it's always been done in a collaborative way, reaching out to other council members, asking you what you would like, and it's really been a decision of both the chair and vice chair, but essentially it is the chair that would do it. But in my experience, it's always been, Councilor Kylie and myself, or Councilor Selberg and myself, we sat down and went through what you submitted to us and wanted to honor everyone's request.
Okay, Mr. Chair, if I may. Yeah, because
floor is yours.
Councilor Erickson, you were gone when we had this discussion. Remember, Councilor Nitzert? Because I brought this up when you presented this. Because I thought it should be, did you add this to it?
No, this is existing language. The
Okay,
city
because
council
when we
member
went-
shall appoint the, I'm sorry, 320119, the council chair shall appoint the audit committee chair. So it explicitly says, just like every other chair of every committee.
Right.
And so that doesn't change.
Yeah, I'll have to go back and watch that because I thought the discussion came down to somehow Marshall was the one who was doing it as the there was something about the operations committee.
If I
Counselor Neitzer and then Counselor Brecky.
real quick, there was a lot that was talked about. One of the things we talked about was that the council vice chair, who's also the operations chair, essentially ends up the supervisor of all of the employees, and that under the new proposal, the auditors would essentially directly report, or the audit manager would also report to the vice chair, who's the operations chair, so that everybody's reporting to the same person. That might be where that came from, but there's a lot we talked about.
Counselor Brecky.
Yeah, I was just going to ask the author of the proposed ordinance, what are your thoughts about friendly amendments, if it is legal, to require the active voter amendment, and then the I guess the chain of command language that's being suggested? I would just be interested in your thoughts on that.
I guess I'd want to think about the active voter. The thing I would say about that is I believe what we put in here was essentially bringing it mostly in line with all of the other city boards. So this would be an outlier, I guess, if we said active voter, if we decided to raise that bar. And then I guess we should maybe it'd be almost a global discussion of maybe should we be talking about that for everybody. I'm not sure how I feel about whether or not, I'm familiar with what an active voter does, but, so I guess I would have to think about it. And the other one that he brought up, if you could help me with that, what was that one?
I think, as I saw it was just kind of clarifying that the committee responds directly to the council. Just a little tightening up of that language to make it crystal clear.
Sure.
And again, I realize I'm putting you on the spot, but I think this is the time to do it at first reading, because if it would be nice, if you're agreeable, then, we can kind of prepare those and have those discussed at second reading.
Really quick on, if I could, Mr. Mayor, respond.
The floor is yours.
Obviously, it would be just essentially stating what really is already there. I guess I'd want to look through the ordinance and see if I thought that it was already stated somewhere. But I don't think conceptually there's a real major problem with it, because they're responsible to the city council, they report to the city council, they're hired and fired by the city council. The whole idea of an internal audit is that they're organizationally independent of the organization that they're auditing, so that the CEO or the mayor obviously can't fire them if they bring forward a negative audit. So conceptually, maybe not a problem with it unless it already says that somewhere.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion on this item? All right, I'll take a vote on the motion to set a date of second reading.
Council members Brecky,
Yes.
Erickson,
Yes.
Kylie, yes, Neitzer,
Yes.
Selberg, yes, Starr,
Yes.
Staley.
Yes.
All right, that passes 7-0. Item 37.
A resolution including certain contiguous territory within the corporate limits of the city of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, annexation 9587-2018, Burns Auto, 5500 East Arrowhead Parkway.
There we go. The applicant and owner here is Larry Burns with Burns Auto. It's located at 5500 East Arrowhead Parkway. This is just north of the Walmart out on East Arrowhead Parkway. It's about 1.36 acres in size. The purpose of this is the applicant is looking at annexing in his property there that's completely surrounded by the city. City staff, specifically Albert Schmidt, has been in contact with this property owner over the last 3 years through numerous mail letters, numerous emails, roughly 12 phone calls, and also 5 site visits with Mr. Burns. During that time, an agreement has come to fruition that has been signed by the city as well as Mr. Burns and is agreeable to all parties. And that agreement was signed on November 2nd of 2018. Mr. Burns was unable to make it tonight. He is dealing with some health issues, so he has confirmed over phone and email that the City of Sioux Falls Planning Office can represent him tonight at the meeting for annexation.
Thanks, Jason. Anyone from the public here to speak on this item tonight? Councilors, you have questions for Jason on this item? Councilor Starr?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Both you and Mr. Schmidt have this is the way we should do annexations. we should spend the time that it takes to make the applicant, that we can get the terms in a way that they agree to. We went as a city above and beyond, and this is the way we should treat our future resident that, or business owner in our city limits. So I've been really impressed the way this process has gone, because we could have been, this is one that is in the middle of an area along Arrowhead Parkway that with the reconstruction and putting sidewalks in and doing all the things that we needed to do, we could have been really heavy-handed in this and forced this annexation, and it was on the list of possible, I hate using the word force, but that's kind of what the result ends up being. But we have done a great job on this one, and I want to commend the staff for doing a great job, and especially Albert, even though he's not here.
I can't take any credit for this. This is Albert's baby, as you would say, and he's put a lot of time and effort into it and done an amazing job on it. So,
Councilor Staley.
Well, Jason, what you can take credit for is that you are also a very friendly, helpful employee. And I would like to echo what Councilor Starr just said about this is how we want to interact with our citizens, that we're lifting them up, we're helping them, and we're not slapping the heavy hand of the city down on them. So thanks to you, thanks to Albert. Job well done.
Any other questions for Jason? We'll look for a motion to approve item 37, please.
I would move to approve item 37.
Second.
Motion by Councilor Starr and seconded by Councilor Brecky. Any further discussion? A vote on this, please.
Council members Brecky.
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
Kylie.
Yes.
Nitzert.
Yes.
Selberg. Yes. Starr.
Yes.
Staley.
Yes.
All right, that passes 7-0. Next item.
A resolution of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, correcting the legal description of a permanent easement area to be released in Resolution 98-18.
Hi, Kurt.
Hello, good evening, Mayor and Council. Kurt Peppel, Public Works Engineering. Item 38 is a correction resolution associated with an easement release that was approved in November of 2018. A legal description error was discovered by the Minnehaha County Register of Deeds. Correction resolution is necessary to ensure the release is indexed properly. Engineering requests your support and approval.
Thanks, Kurt. Anyone from the public wish to speak on this item? Councilors, do you have questions for Kurt on this?
Move approval, Erickson.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second, Selberg.
Okay, move to approve by Erickson, seconded by Selberg. Any discussion? A vote on this, please.
Council members Brecky.
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
Kylie.
Yes.
Nitzert.
Yes.
Selberg.
Yes.
Starr.
Yes.
Staley.
Yes.
All right, that passes 7-0. Item 39.
A resolution of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, correcting the Recording County Register of Deeds in Resolution 106-18.
Good evening again. Item 39 is another correction resolution with a right-of-way vacation that was approved in December of 2018. The Minnehaha County Register of Deeds was noted in lieu of the Lincoln County Register of Deeds. This is just housekeeping. Do we get it indexed in the proper county? Engineering requests your support and approval.
Okay, thanks, Kurt. Anyone from the public to speak on this tonight? Councilors, any questions or motions?
Move approval, Erickson.
Second, Selberg.
Move to approve Erickson, seconded by Selberg. Vote on this, please.
Council members Brecky.
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
Kylie.
Yes.
Nitzert.
Yes.
Selberg.
Yes.
Starr.
Yes.
Staley.
Yes.
All right, that passes 7-0. Item 40.
A resolution approving the release of an easement for ingress and egress across Track 2B of Narradell's second addition to the City of Sioux Falls, Minnehaha County, South Dakota.
The easement to be released is near West 12th Street and the Big Sioux River, just west of the old Kmart site. It was originally established to benefit what is now the city-owned property, but there was a water park there at one time. The owner's attorney has requested that the easement for ingress and egress be released as it's not being used. There are no facilities located within the easement to be released. Engineering recommends approval.
Thanks, Kurt. Anyone from the public to speak on this tonight? Councilors, questions for Kurt?
Move approval, Erickson.
Move to approve Erickson. Do I have a second?
Second, Starr.
Seconded by Starr. Any discussion? Vote on this, please.
Council members Brecky.
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
Kylie.
Yes.
Nitzert.
Yes.
Selberg. Starr.
Yes.
Staley.
Yes.
All right, that passes 7-0. Item 41.
A resolution authorizing the mayor to sign Federal Aid Bridge Improvement Grant, BIG, application resolution for the preservation or rehabilitation of the South Minnesota Avenue Bridge over the Big Sioux River.
Good evening again. Items 41 and 42 are resolutions allowing the mayor to sign grant applications for bridge rehabilitation funding. Just a little bit of background on the bridge improvement grant funds. The city has 50 structures in the National Bridge Inspection Standard Program. Bridges and culverts more than 20 feet long are used for vehicular traffic. Inspections are required every intervals of 2 to 4 years. And the purpose of the program is to locate and evaluate existing bridges and deficiencies to ensure safety of the traveling public nationwide. Why we're here tonight is the city is seeking bridge preservation funding for 2 bridges through the DOT's bridge, the big program. And the preservation just allows extend the life of the bridge. So item 41 is the bridge just on Minnesota Avenue over the Big Sioux River, just south of Interstate 229. The work that is proposed to be done is to 2-coat bridge decks epoxy seal and some undermining underneath the bridge, the approach slabs. Project total is $451,000, and there's part of that is it's an 80-20 match. The resolution authorizes submission of the application only, and engineering requests support and approval.
Thanks, Kurt. Anyone from the public here to speak on this tonight? Councilors, do you have questions for Kurt on this item?
Move approval, Erickson.
Second, Brecky.
All right, move to approve by Erickson, seconded by Kylie. Discussion, Councilor Staley.
So Kurt, who pays the 80%?
That would come from the grant funds, the DOT funds that are available.
So the city's going to end up paying how much?
20% of the,
451.
and it would be about $90,000.
Okay. Other discussion on this item, Councilor Starr?
Yes, Kurt, I did have just a quick question. We estimate a cost for this repair or this updating. What happens if the bids come in high? Are we generous in the estimate? Does the grant funds adjust, or does the city then become liable for the difference?
That I am not sure. I would have to, for right now, we're looking just to apply for the grants. The projects are scheduled to go whether the grant fund's there or not.
Thanks.
Other discussion, Council? All right, I'm going to call for a vote on the motion.
Council members Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Neitzer?
Yes.
Dahlberg?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
All right, that passes 7-0. Item 42.
A resolution authorizing the mayor to sign federal aid bridge improvement grant, BIG, application resolution for the preservation or rehabilitation of the West 12th Street Bridge over the Big Sioux River.
Item 42 is just another bridge that we're looking for grant funding for. It is the West 12th Street over the Big Sioux River, just east of Interstate 29. This one is somewhat similar. Epoxy seal on the deck, some steel railing, chain link fence, and some undermining of the approach slabs are areas that will need addressed. This estimate is about $591,000. And again, the resolution authorizes submission of the application and engineering requests your support and approval.
Thanks, Kurt. Anyone from the public here to speak on that topic? Councilors, questions for Kurt on this one? Motions on this?
Move approval.
Second.
Move to approve by Selberg, seconded by Erickson. Discussion, Council. A vote on this, please.
Council members Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Neitzer?
Yes.
Dahlberg?
Yes.
Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
All right, that passes 7-0. Item 43.
A resolution authorizing use of construction manager risk services for the construction, renovation, and expansion of the water reclamation facility.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. This builds off last week's presentation. We are here to recommend using the collaborative construction manager at risk delivery method for the water reclamation improvements and the expansion, and to follow state law and our city executive order. This resolution provides that step. With your support, we'll move forward.
All right, anyone from the public here to speak on this item? Councilors, do you have questions for Mark on this? Are you here to speak on this item, sir? All right.
I was up here, Bruce Danielson. I was up here a little bit ago, and I was, part of what I'm going to talk about now ties into what I was talking about earlier, and I'll finish out what I was working on because it ties into what's going on right now. So we're back to the chiller system, construction manager at risk issues. Why was a closed loop system on the chiller system not used? A closed loop system would have reused water with minimal loss. Once water is in the closed loop system and being used, there are no new minerals being introduced to the system to plug the screening. Did a water hydraulic engineer get consulted on this fix to see if the current chiller system could be used? What happens to the salvage value of the current chiller components? Did the city get an EPA waiver or other state or federal agency permission to pull water out of the ground and then dump it into our sanitary sewer system? As we learned last week, we have a great deal of flow being dumped into the sanitary system since this past summer. Why are we taxing the sanitary system with groundwater? Is the sanitary sewer lines leading out of the building being overtaxed now? Why is the water not being put into the storm sewer system? In the end, who pays for the additional utility costs over the lifetime of this building when we have we're no longer using the chiller, the groundwater system to run this building? And are we, in the new unit, are we using any of the current components? And this is how it ties into the construction manager at risk, is that we have a problem here with all these properties that were brought in to the discussion. We have the Denny Sanford, and you'll see in pink there that shows the court action proved secrecy based the schemes were defrauding the city. On the Midco Aquatic Center, we built a swimming pool on property that isn't legally the property of the city of Sioux Falls. We got compared to private property like Washington Square, the Augustana building, the Sanford, Avera. Those are private businesses of one sort or another. That can't even be compared to the openness that was happening with the city history and the county archive building. We don't have any controls. The mixed-use parking ramp, that's a public-private partnership. We really don't have much control over that. Then we get back into the city center building, the Romantics Annex, that is dumping a massive amount of water into the sanitary water system right now. And when we took what information we've been given on that system right now, we're bonding for $260 million. And I know that there's a lot of snickering going on in all of this, but when you really get down to it, what we've got is, when we backed into the numbers, we're looking at 14,000 houses got dumped into this sanitary water system if you back the numbers that we've been able to figure out. I worked with some water engineers, people that are used to thermodynamics in this kind of a system, and we're trying to figure out what's going on. I'd really like to know, before this system moves forward, if we actually have dumped in 14,000 more households into the system, which is, you know, we could be talking in the mid 30,000 more people equivalent. That building is dumping possibly 300 gallons a minute into the sanitary water system. It's overtaxing what we've got out here. All of a sudden we saw this incredible rise in water usage in the system, it going through the sanitary system, and now we know why. It's very likely that building is doing it to us with the way that chiller system is not properly designed. Thank you.
Any other public input on this topic? Councilors, is there a motion on this item?
Move approve. Second.
Move to approve, Kylie, seconded by Selberg. Any discussion? Vote on, Councilor Steele, you have something?
Yes, for Director Cotter, please. I just have a question about this expansion. How many separate pieces of debt transactions are we going to be doing with this?
We'll be doing 7 SRF loans over the course of the next 5 years, and I shared that in an email with you earlier today.
And I've been in meetings all day today.
Okay.
Okay, so
Very good.
I've been working here, city council, haven't
I
had a lot of
understand.
time to check the emails.
I'd like to also make sure, based on the public input and the questioning, it's related to a construction manager at risk, not the funding of the project. Do you have a question on the construction manager at risk?
Are the construction manager at risk people going to be paid by the funding of the project?
Certainly.
Oh,
That's how we're
okay.
going to
So they
deliver
kind of
the
do,
project.
they kind of, it's, we're hiring some people to do this project. Funding
Do you have
will
other
be,
questions, Counselor?
so 7 pieces to this. If we were to go the other route, and if we voted down on the construction manager at risk, then you go back to a more of a piecemeal approach, correct?
We would go to what we call hard bid, and the key of using construction manager at risk is day one you get your contractor in the room, so you're value engineering and pricing the project out from day one. You're not waiting for the day they open bids to understand what the cost is. So it's, in our case with the rehabilitation, a very complex project, it's the best situation to get your designer and the constructor in the room with the owner from day one.
And just to be on the record here, my experience with the event center issue, very negative. Construction, I mean, I didn't like how that whole thing was handled when there was a problem. To me, I think and now we got this administration building thing going on, and to me, I'm thinking, wow, I'd like to have a little more accountability in how we're moving forward and who's taking responsibility for what. So I've got some questions here. Thank you.
Any other questions, council? Discussion? Okay, I call for a vote on this, please.
Council members Brecky,
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
Kylie.
Yes.
Nitzert.
Yes.
Selberg.
Yes.
Starr.
Yes.
Staley.
No.
That passes 6-1. Next item.
Item 44, a resolution vacating the South Elmwood Avenue right-of-way from the south right-of-way line of West 26th Street to the north right-of-way line of West 28th Street. Recommendation, set a date of hearing for Tuesday, February 12th, 2019.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Kurt Pebble, Public Works Engineering. This section of Elmwood Avenue is near West 26th Street and Southwestern Avenue. Slide up there right now, just highlighting the yellow areas, the right-of-way to be vacated, and the blue areas are just some previous right-of-way vacations that have occurred in the area. Property owner Lifescape submitted the right-of-way vacation petition pursuant to South Dakota law and complies with the city street vacation policy. Lifescape has continued to, this is their second attempt at this. Lifescape has continued to engage the neighborhood and has held on-site visits with city staff and several council members. If the vacation is approved, an easement will be reserved for public and private utilities over the entire right-of-way area. Just to highlight a few pros and cons, if the right-of-way is vacated, and there are representatives from Lifescape here as well that will speak to some of this, but just a few that I've highlighted. Pros of vacating the right-of-way, it allows for additional landscape buffer between the proposed parking lot that will be built, whether the right-of-way vacation occurs or not. The vacated area goes back on the tax roll. Lifescape has committed to remove parking on 26th Street and 28th Street adjacent to their property if the vacation occurs. And it mainly improves the safety for student drop-off and pickup. One of the main cons would be that the Elmwood traffic that currently uses it would need to find other routes through the neighborhood, and those the other streets in the area could see potential increases. From a transportation and utility perspective, engineering does not have any concerns with the proposed vacation. And finally, earlier today, Public Works sent an email to council and mayor regarding a proposed amendment on this item, and Public Works requests the council consider the amendment.
Thanks, Kurt. Anyone from the public here to speak on this tonight? Okay, councilors, you have questions for Kurt on this. Councilor Staley.
Well, and if I could just read, Kurt, this is what I had a concern with in our resolution. It says, testimony in support of said petition has been heard, and no opposition hereto was voiced. And that, of course, is not true, because, or maybe Lifescape didn't hear any opposition, and maybe you didn't hear any, but I certainly have.
Correct, and the amendment addresses that.
Thank you.
Councilor Brackey.
What is the nature of the opposition? The red notes say that there is some neighbor. I'm trying to wrap my arms around what the opposition is to the current proposal.
I personally have not heard any. I would probably let Lifescape talk about that. They've been engaging the neighborhood and getting a feel for what they're thinking.
Okay. Are they here
they're
tonight?
here.
Okay, good. That's fine. Thanks. I'll ask them.
If you have questions for them.
Nope, nothing for you.
Councilor Erickson.
I have a question for the applicant. If
Steve, you want to come forward, please?
Steve, I understand Steve and Rick are here, so maybe both come up close because I might have questions for you both. Hi, welcome. Thank you. If you can just state your name for the record.
Steve Watkins, CEO of Lifescape.
Thank you. I just want to talk a little bit about this proposal, and I know that there's been some other talk about an option B, so to speak, that is not vacating the street, but it has a higher impact on the neighbors, and those buffers are different. I was wondering if you could just talk me through that a little bit as far as the options with that, and what allows more buffer space, what allows more benefit to those neighbors. And I understand, I don't want you representing the neighbors, but just in your opinion, as you see this change in that neighborhood, if you or Rick could address that for me.
I'll go from kind of a high level, and Rick obviously has all the detail. Being fairly new to Lifescape right now, I'm kind of more at the 50,000 feet. A couple things that happened is when this was approved, what was put forth to not only the city but as well as the local community around Lifescape was that we would be able to take and create a parking lot that had roughly 140 parking spots. Those 140 parking spots would allow us to vacate the VA parking area, plus also vacate a number of the side streets where the individuals park. When the vacating wasn't allowed, then new setbacks come into play. And the setbacks that come into play basically shrink that parking lot. And we effectively go from 140 parking spots to 90. The 50 cars that we're hoping to get off the street remain on the street. The other thing that happens in this case, and Rick's actually got some design work he can show you, effectively what that creates is a one-way parking area. And so the cars can either come in from 26th or they can leave 26th, but either way, those 90 cars have to come into the community, the local community, in order to either get into the parking lot or come out of the parking lot with the new design that came into play. So effectively, as we've tried to limit the impact of traffic to the local community, with the original design where all the cars would come in from 26th Street, now if they come in from 26th, they'll exit down on roughly 28th. So there'll be more traffic coming into the community than we had originally planned. We weren't able to get the cars off the street like we were originally hoping to plan. And again, this is because of the setback that has to be contemplated if the vacation doesn't take place. Along with that, then it does impact the greenway that we were looking at that separates the homes from the parking area. It goes from roughly 54 feet across to 35 feet, about a 35% reduction in green space. We have agreed to plant taller trees, even though the arborist told us not to. If that helps with the community, we actually said the individuals that are impacted could actually tell us where to plant those trees, if they want to come over and actually tell us right where to put those trees. So we've tried to be very open with this. And then lastly, from my perspective, what we really lose in this if we don't get a chance is really protecting the kids of Lifescape, and particularly with their ADA accessibility needs, we have to make sure that, at least from my perspective, we got to keep that in mind. But once we got a chance to understand that there was a setback issue, that was something new that we hadn't contemplated, as said earlier, we did get a chance. We met individually with the neighbors. We met with just the neighbors that were impacted by the trees, and then we met with the entire group, and at the same time asked the council to come out and take another look at it as well. We wanted to be really open with the community so they could understand it. So effectively what we're seeing is that there's more, if the gating doesn't happen, and we didn't understand this at the time, but if it doesn't happen, there will be the 50 cars we were hoping to pull off the street will remain on the street. We will also see traffic inbound or outbound having to go through the community because of the one-way parking area. Sizable 35–40% reduction in the green space that would be the buffer. And so overall, we see the community having a negative impact. That's why we wanted to bring it back. Obviously, it's a negative impact to us as well. So we'd obviously appreciate your consideration of this opportunity to take another look at this.
Thank you. And that, I appreciate your detail in that. My last question is, when do you lose the spots at the VA? When is that done?
We have to be off of the VA at May 31st. Wow. Yeah, it's coming up.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that. And I think that you've made a lot of great points as far as the differences between the two and the impact of the two as well. And that setback from a 35% reduction in space is really pushing that up next to the neighbors and really, I mean, really adjust that closer to them. Thank you.
Councilors, other questions for them? Councilor Brecky.
Yeah, my question's for Rick. You know, I met with you out there and you showed me, you know, the two proposals which do exactly what you just said. I mean, it creates a whole different situation when you actually put pen to the paper with and did the detailed drawings. And at that time, you had not yet met with the neighbors. And so I'm just wondering, again, can you give me your understanding of their perception of the two choices as I see it, when, you know, there are two choices here, what they felt about it when they, were they able to understand what complications that causes and what additional impact there is, you know, as best as you understand it, how that went. Can you just give me a report on how that meeting went?
Sure. We met with the three neighbors whose backyards would be adjacent to the buffer zone, and we met with them as a group. Greg and Lori, or Greg and Lisa rather, they want the larger buffer. They want the street vacated so that they can have that extra 20 feet in between their backyard and the parking. Janelle is opposed, and I'm not quite sure. She really didn't say why. She did say she uses Elmwood, so I'm assuming maybe that's why she doesn't want to vacate it, but she didn't really state a reason why. And Mary Ann and I went and visited her actually right around Christmas time to see if there's anything else we can do and just to try to understand better why she doesn't want the vacation. And she just said she's concerned about the traffic that will come down Lincoln, which is her street. And I tried to explain the 90 parking spaces that are over at the VA are now going to have to enter our parking lot if we don't vacate through the neighborhood. So there's, I think, a very good chance. And those 90 spaces are only, we have about 170 employees at our peak time, but in a 24-hour period, we have well over about 275, 300 employees that come to our facility over a 24-hour period, and that's 7 days a week. So that traffic that now can park on the north side of 26th Street will come through the neighborhood to enter into the parking lot. And I can show you the drawing that we had once we did not get approval for the street vacation last time. We went back to the engineer. We said, okay, we need to redesign so that we can go ahead and build this parking lot. When I got the design back, it reduced the buffer. It reduced the number of spaces. Obviously, we knew that would happen.
and created just a less than ideal situation. We had to go with a one-way traffic through the parking lot to make it narrow enough to even fit. And so that's why it creates all of our employees having to go through the neighborhood. If we vacate the street, our employee entrance would be off of 26th Street, and we wouldn't allow entrance from the south end of the parking lot. And we've actually redesigned what we proposed the first time. We've moved the entrance and turned it into kind of a one-way entrance. We'll still have our school drop-off on the east side of Elmwood. And so that will be the traffic that will then come through the neighborhood 2 times a day. And that's probably about 30 vehicles that come through to drop off students for school. And that's really a bigger part, or a big part to us in vacating the street, is creating a safe drop off. Right now, and we've gotten several letters of support from parents, school districts, special ed directors, supporting the vacation, because our parking, or our drop off right now, is really congested. For ADA purposes, these students all have disabilities, and it's a struggle, and it's not a safe situation. We also would improve access for emergency services. So that front parking lot and the entrance to our buildings, and our hospital sits right there, is pretty much blocked off from emergency services access for about 45 minutes in the morning and 45 minutes in the afternoon. Not too long ago, we had a situation where we had a child on the playground having a seizure. Emergency services came. They parked on 26th Street and blocked the whole road for probably 20 minutes or better, because they couldn't get in our lot because it happened to be at one of those times. So that's a big part of why we would like the street vacation as well. But in terms of just traffic and flow and understanding what those neighbors' concerns are, I'm not sure how to address one neighbor. I think I spoke with Mary Ann. She won't be in town for the second reading. If we get a second reading, she's not in town right now. But her concerns were traffic, and I really think the traffic's going to be, it may be worse if we don't vacate, because of all of our employees having to come through the neighborhood to enter into the parking lot.
And did I hear you say that you just talked to the 3 neighbors bordering the property, or you talked to them separately?
That was back in November. And then we met, we had a full neighborhood meeting. Okay. We sent invites to all the neighborhood.
Are you hearing any other opposition from those not bordering?
No. Every person that spoke up at that meeting was in support, felt the design was the best to vacate the street, had a nicer buffer zone in between the houses. All of the rest of the neighbors were very supportive of it.
Because I did receive a phone call today from someone who wasn't, but I sent her back to you. Okay. She was unable to attend the meeting, and I explained these 3 issues, because I had just this morning, I re-looked at that sure. Second proposal, and I said, I think you need to go talk to Lifescape, because you really need to understand, what it is you're saying you oppose. And she was going to, so don't be surprised if you get a phone call from her, because I said, be sure you understand what you're asking me to do.
Struggling.
So, but thank you very much. That's what I was really interested in following up with you on. What was the result of those neighborhood meetings? So thank you so much.
Yep.
Councilor Staley?
Well, and I also think it would be real beneficial had some of the neighbors been here tonight. And if this will go to a second reading, I'm sure, and then we can actually hear from them, getting up to express their concerns about it.
Sure.
Because it's not fair for Lifescape to be giving testimony on behalf of the neighbors either.
Councilor Erickson?
I just want to, acknowledge your comments on the ADA. That was not something I really understood the first time, and so I just want to acknowledge those. We're dealing with, your organization is dealing with, folks that can't just walk themselves in and need that additional assistance with the ADA approval. And so I just want to acknowledge that. And then if there are neighbors that need to reach out to us, as always, this isn't their first rodeo, reach out to us. They can reach out to you, and I would encourage you to have those folks that are in support to also reach out to us. We need to hear from both sides to understand what this means for your guests and those most vulnerable people that are needing your services, and you're trying to accommodate that for them. I would like to hear some of the challenges that they're dealing with right now, and I think that would be important for us. So thank you again for drawing out those differences and bringing those highlights to our attention.
I'd look for Councilor Starr.
Thank you. Rick, one of the things that when we were out, we talked a lot about 26th Street and getting that there. Are you assuring us that you'll make that application process if we vacated the street, that we would remove the parking along 26th Street?
Absolutely. We would petition to have the parking removed from the north side of 26th Street and from the adjacent on 28th Street as well, adjacent to our property. We would petition to have no parking there as well.
Awesome. Do you think the VA would be interested in the north part, vacating the parking along the north side of the street then, or is that still I mean, they're as short a parking as you are.
They are, but fortunately they're going to gain back 90 spaces. I haven't had that conversation with them. Right now, I know, I don't see employees getting out of the cars and going north. I see them trying to cross the street and playing.
I think it's going to be an interesting, if you petition to remove the parking from the street, what I see is the speed increasing through there too at the same time. But if there aren't people coming south across the street, well, maybe, not that I would condone that, and I doubt Heath would either by the time we're done, but I think that's might be one of the unintended consequences of that at the same time.
Sure. We've got a crosswalk there now, and people push the button, the yellow light comes on, and cars don't pay attention to it. So
we have that in lots of portions of Sioux Falls though too. I mean, you go down on across from 8th and Railroad too, there's a crosswalk there, and you put your life in your own hands to go across there at different times that people
a
speed
stop
down
sign
Street.
wouldn't be a completely bad thing on that
I'm
section.
not going there yet, so thank you.
Councilors, I'd look for a motion, set a date, a second reading for Tuesday, February 12, 2019.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make the motion to set a date of hearing for Tuesday, February 12th, 2019 for item 44.
Second.
Okay. Motion by Councilor Neitzer, second by Councilor Kiley. And Councilor Neitzer, you have an amendment on that?
Yeah, I'm going to make a motion to amend item 44 by striking the words "in support" and the comma and words "and no opposition hereto was voiced" after the word "heard," all from the second sentence of the second whereas clause.
All right.
Second, Erickson.
Second on that. Councilor Neitzer, you want to explain that?
Yeah, I'll just explain that for the public. There is a template that's used for these street vacations, and one of the sentences says, "Testimony in support of said petition has been heard and no opposition hereto is voiced." This is the same boilerplate language that they've used for quite a long time, looking back, I think even several years. So there was no implication whatsoever in here to make any sort of a statement in this particular case that there was no opposition or anything else. This is just a template that's just been used for a long time, and it was brought to their attention. And so we're going to, by amending it, what we're going to do, and they're going to do this with street vacations going forward and put it into the template. It will simply say, "Testimony of said petition has been heard," period. So there won't be any statement about support or opposition because you don't know, obviously, in advance. And so by making this change right now, when they publish this for the date of hearing, it will go out with this amended sentence so that it won't confuse the public, which we've already had a call today saying, "Hey, I'm opposed," and it says "no opposition hereto is voiced," which obviously is very confusing. And would you mind if I just made a couple other quick comments?
Sure.
Okay. I'm going to hold back for the most part on the merits of this until the official hearing, but I do want to say pros and cons were mentioned. One I had thought of that obviously is something to think about as well whenever you talk about a street vacation. You know, when when you develop a subdivision, obviously you have to provide access for all of the properties. And so you have to, the developer has to build the road and then they dedicate the right of way. Well, then from the city into perpetuity, now we have to plow it and we have to reconstruct it. You vacate it, it's now private property. It's not a right of way. So they will be responsible for reconstructing it and doing any work on it, and plowing. It's no longer a road. So that is one benefit in the weighing of the pros and cons. Another thing that's important to mention, we had a call of somebody concerned that there was that they wouldn't be able to be here tonight, and it's important to note that this is just setting the date of hearing. We're not taking any official action. And the last thing I just wanted to point out, just from the zoning wonkiness, in case some people maybe on TV or just kind of listening weren't maybe quite grasping this whole discussion. Whenever you have a lot, anything that abuts a street is a required front yard, which means you have a required front yard setback. And in this zoning district, it must be 15 or 20 feet that they've got to do, or something like that. So that necessarily, if that road is not vacated, that means that parking lot there has to move to the west, which is closer to the neighbor's properties, 15, 20 feet, something like that, if that road is not vacated. If you vacate the road, now it's one giant lot. It's not two lots of record. It's no longer, it might be paved, they might drive on it, but it is not a public right-of-way. There's no setback. So now they can do whatever they want there. It's just the middle of a property. So then that's why they can butt it up there. So that's why that street vacation would become important as far as shifting. So the road may look almost entirely the same, but it would no longer be a public right-of-way. Ergo, zoning there's no setback. So that's where the moving of the lot goes. So
I'm going to call for a vote on your
Mr. Mayor,
amendment first.
if I may, and just for the record, I mean, I know when this happened last time, there was 3 of us who voted against this. So the other 5 people thought it was a great idea then. So I know we're kind of rehashing this. Councilor Brecky, myself, and Councilor Starr said we were opposed to vacating this. So just so people understand where we came from in the past, and I doubt that the other 5 are going to change their minds, but I really do need to hear from the neighbors, because I did last time around. I not only heard from the abutting property owners, who I have great empathy for, because none of us would want to unknowingly have the houses on the other side of the block bought up, moved out, and then all of a sudden we're having a parking lot, and then all of a sudden we're going to close the street. So it's an issue of respecting them, having empathy for them, but also I heard from residents who live in that area who did not want their street closed, Elmwood, and I have a lot of respect for residential streets. So I know we have a lot of ideas floating around, but I think we've heard from Lifescape. I came out and listened to both of you. I think a lot of us came out and saw the issue at hand. So the neighbors need to speak up, in my opinion. That's kind of a piece of this.
What I'd like to do is call for a vote on the amendment, and just the amendment that Councilor Neitzer made. So can I have a vote on that, please?
Council members Brecky,
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
Kylie.
Yes.
Neitzer.
Yes.
Delberg. Yes. Starr.
Yes.
Staley.
Yes.
All right, that's 7-0. We've heard the input now on the amended main motion. So is there any other discussion? Vote on the amended main motion.
Council members Brecky,
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
Kylie.
Yes.
Neitzer.
Yes.
Selberg.
Yes.
Starr.
Yes.
Staley.
Yes.
All right, that passes 7-0. Item 45.
A resolution vacating a portion of the East Producer Lane right-of-way.
Good evening again, Kurt Peppel, Public Works Engineering. The section of East Producer Lane is in the Sioux Empire Development Park 8 Edition, which is in the northeast part of Sioux Falls. In the slide up there, you can see the city's water rec plant just to the right, if you guys have visited there. Sayer Associates, on behalf of the adjoining owners, submitted the right-of-way vacation petition pursuant to South Dakota law and complies with the city street vacation policy. A neighborhood meeting was held January 10th, 2019. If the vacation is approved, an easement will be reserved for public and private utilities. From a transportation and utility perspective, engineering does not have any concerns with the proposed vacation. And again, finally, Public Works requests to consider an amendment on this to correct the language.
All right, thanks, Kurt. Anyone from the public here to speak on this item tonight? Councilors, do you have questions for Kurt on this? Councilor Staley.
So Kurt, I tried getting a hold of you ahead of time, and we did talk a little bit before the meeting. How many neighbors came to this meeting?
I do not believe I was not there. Albert Schmidt was there for the city. I don't believe any neighbors were in attendance. Councilor
Could I
Brecky
was there, so I could
Councilor
answer.
Brecky,
I could
on the
answer.
floor.
There were no neighbors that showed.
No, okay, and then if, back to the map where it showed, it wasn't this map. There was a different map up before.
What's important on the one that's up there, the road is being realigned. So the street's not going away. They're to aid in some development of the area. The road is just being realigned.
But if we could see there we go. I'm just looking at that yellow area. Are there even houses in that area?
No, this
Yes.
is,
Nothing,
an
it's
industrial
industrial.
park,
Yes,
yeah.
okay, so that,
To the bottom right is the FedEx, I believe.
yes. Thank you.
All right, councilors, other questions for Kurt on this? Look for a motion, set a date of second reading for Tuesday, February 12th, 2019.
So move, Star.
Second,
Moved by
Brecky.
Councilor Starr and seconded by Councilor Brecky. Any other discussion? Councilor Neitzert.
I'll make a motion to amend item 45 by striking the words "in support" and the comma and words "and no opposition hereto is voiced" after the word "heard," all from the second sentence of the second whereas clause.
Second, Brecky.
Okay, I'll give the second to Councilor Erickson on that. Can I have a vote on that amendment, please?
Council members Brecky,
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
Kylie.
Yes.
Neitzert.
Yes.
Selberg. Yes. Starr.
Yes.
Staley.
All right, that passes 7-0, and I'd call for a vote on the amended main motion, please.
Council members Brecky,
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
Kylie.
Yes.
Neitzert.
Yes.
Selberg. Yes. Starr.
Yes.
Staley.
Yes.
Okay, that is passed 7-0. Councilors, any new business this evening?
Move to adjourn.
Second, Star.
Okay, move to adjourn. Erickson, seconded by Starr. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
All those opposed, no. Motion is carried. We are adjourned. Have a good night.